ಅವನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ವ್ಯಾಸ ಋಷಿಗಳ ಮಹಾಕವಿಗಳ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಪನೆ ಕರ್ಣನಿಗೆ ಪಟ್ಟಾಭಿಷೇಕ ಆಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಆದರೆ ಹತ್ತಿರಕ್ಕೆ ಬರೋಕೆ ಅಧಿರಥನಿಗೆ ಸಂಕೋಚ. ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ಈಗ ದೊಡ್ಡವನಾಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಮಗ. ನೆನ್ನೆವರೆಗೂ ಇಂದು ಬೆಳಗಿನವರೆಗೂ ಯಾರೋ ನಮ್ಮ ಹುಡುಗ ಅಂತಿದ್ದವನು ಈಗ ದುರ್ಯೋಧನನ ಕೃಪಾ ಕಟಾಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಪಾತ್ರನಾಗಿ ಅಂಗರಾಜ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಅಭಿಷಿಕ್ತನಾಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಸಿಂಹಾಸನವನ್ನು ಏರಿ ಕೂತಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಅವನ ತಲೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ತೊಯ್ದಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಹೇಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿಸೋದು ಅಂತ ನನಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾಪಕ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಇದೇ ಮೈಸೂರು ವಿಶ್ವವಿದ್ಯಾಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುಮಾರು 90 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕೆಳಗೆ, 90 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಗೂ ಕೆಳಗೆ, 90-100 ವರ್ಷವೇ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋಣ, ಅಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಕೆಳಗೆ ತೀನಂ ಶ್ರೀಕಂಠಯ್ಯನವರು ಅಂತ ದೊಡ್ಡ ವಿದ್ವಾಂಸರಿದ್ದರು. ಅವರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪದವೀಧರರಾದರು. ಕನ್ನಡದ MA ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಗಳನ್ನು ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪಡ್ಕೊಂಡಂಥವರು ಅವರು ಒಬ್ಬರು. ಅವರು ಕುವೆಂಪು ಅವ್ರಿಗಿಂತ 1-2 ವರ್ಷ ಜೂನಿಯರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದವರು. ಅವರು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ M ಹಿರಿಯಣ್ಣನವರ ಪ್ರಿಯ ಶಿಷ್ಯರು, AR ಕೃಷ್ಣಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಿಗಳು ಇಂಥ ಮಹಾನುಭಾವರ ಶಿಷ್ಯರಾಗಿದ್ದವರು. ಒಳ್ಳೆಯ ಸುಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಅನ್ನೋದರ ಸಾಕಾರವಾಗಿದ್ದವರು ತೀನಂ ಶ್ರೀಕಂಠಯ್ಯನವರು. ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆಗ 17 ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮೆಡಲ್ಗಳು ಬಂತಂತೆ. ಆಗ ಅವರ ತಂದೆ ಹಳ್ಳಿಯವರು, ಪಾಪ ತೀರ್ಥಪುರ ಅಂತ ತಿಪ್ಟೂರು ಹತ್ತಿರ ಒಂದು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಹಳ್ಳಿ, ಚಿಕ್ಕನಾಕನಹಳ್ಳಿ ಹತ್ತಿರ ಇರುವಂಥ ಹಳ್ಳಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬಂದವರು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇವರು ತೊಗೋತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಒಂದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮೆಡಲ್ ತೊಗೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಗ ನಿಜವಾದ ಗೋಲ್ಡ್ ಮೆಡಲ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾಯಿದ್ರು. ಕನ್ವೊಕೇಶನ್ನಾಗಿ ಒಂದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ ಒಂದು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದವ್ರು ಯಾರೋ, ಇವ್ರ ತಂದೆ ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದವರು ಯಾರೋ ಪುಣ್ಯಾತ್ಮರು, ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ ಮಗನೋ ಏನೋ ಅಂತಂದ್ರಂತೆ. ಇವರಿಗೆ ತನ್ನ ಮಗ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಆಸೆ. ತಾನು ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಹಳ್ಳಿಯವನು, ಏನೋ ಹಳೆ ಬಟ್ಟೆ, ಮಾಸೋಗಿದ ಬಟ್ಟೆ, ಕುರುಚಲು ಗಡ್ಡ, ಬೆವರಿದೆ ಮೈ, ಹೇಳಿಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಆ ಮಗನಿಗೆ ಅವಮಾನವಾಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೋ ಏನೋ ಅಂತ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಕೋಚ ಪಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾನೇ ಅವರಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರಂತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರೀತಿಯಿಂದ, ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಂಕೋಚದಿಂದ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. ಕುಚೇಲನಿಗೆ ಅವಲಕ್ಕಿಯನ್ನು ಕೃಷ್ಣನ ಮುಂದೆ ಬಿಚ್ಚಿಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಂಕೋಚ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾದ ಸಂಕೋಚ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಧಿರಥ ಮುಂದೆ ಬರೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಕೋಚ. ಸತು ಎಷ್ಟಿಗತ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಅಂತ ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಒಂದು ಕೋಲು ಊರ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ. ಎಷ್ಟಿಗತ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಅಂದರೆ ದೊಣ್ಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ತನ್ನ ಪ್ರಾಣ ಊರು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂತ. ಆ ಆಧಾರದ ಊರೆಗೋಲಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ನಿಲ್ಲೋಕ್ಕೂ ಆಗೋಲ್ಲ, ಅಷ್ಟು ನಡುಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ದವನನ್ನು ದೂರದಿಂದ ಕರ್ಣ ನೋಡ್ದ. ಅವನು ದೊಡ್ಡತನ ನೋಡಿ ಇವ್ರು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನನಗೆ ಇಂಜಿನಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಕಾಲೇಜಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ ಇದ್ದರು. ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿಗಳು ಊರಿಂದ ಬಂದಿದ್ದರೆ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಬೇರೆ ಆಧುನಿಕ ಕಾಲದವ್ರು ಯಾರು ನೋಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟು ಹೂ ಆರ್ ದೋಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ದೇರ್ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಸರ್ವೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಬ್ರಾಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಎ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರಂತೆ. ಇಂಥ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಆದರೆ ಕರ್ಣ ಹಾಗೆ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಧಿರಥನನ್ನು ಕಂಡ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಓಡಿ ಬಂದು ತನ್ನ ತಲೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಅಭಿಷೇಕ ಜಲದಿಂದ ತೊಯ್ದಿತ್ತು, ಅವನ ಕಾಲಿಗೆ ಇಟ್ಟು ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದಂತೆ. ಆಗ ಅಧಿರಥ ತನ್ನ ಉತ್ತರಿ ಇವನ ಕಾಲಿಗೆ ಮುಚ್ಚಿಬಿಟ್ಟು, ಇಲ್ಲ ನೀನು ದೊರೆ, ನೀನು ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ ಮಾತಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಕೃತಿಯಿಂದ ತೋರಿಸ್ದ. ಕಾಲಿನ ಮೇಲೆ ತನ್ನ ಉತ್ತರಿಗೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ನಂತೆ. ಹಾಕಿ ಪುತ್ರ ಇತ್ತ ಬ್ರವೀದ್ವಾಕ್ಯಂ, ಮಗು ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಮಾತು ಹೇಳ್ದ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅವನ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಒಂದೇ ಪದ, ಆದರೆ ಮರೆಯೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ರೀತಿಯಾದಂಥ ಪಾತ್ರ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದೇನಿದೆ ಶಾಶ್ವತವಾದ ಮೌಲ್ಯವನ್ನು ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ಒಬ್ಬ ಮಗ ಹೇಗೆ ನಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು, ಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಬಂದಾಗ ಅಷ್ಟು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸ್ಥಾನ ಪಡೆಯದೇ ಇರೋ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಂದಿರ ಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಎ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಲೈಟ್ಫುಲ್ ಎಂಬರಾಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಆ ಎಂಬರಾಸ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಏನು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಚಿತ್ರಿಸೋದು. ಇಂಥದ್ದು ಇಮ್ಮಾರ್ಟಲ್ ಆದಂಥದ್ದು ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಬದುಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಉಪೇಕ್ಷೆ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಾದ ಯಾವುದೋ ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶವನ್ನು ಹೈಲೈಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ತುಂಬ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸು ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತದೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಅದು ಕಥೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಾದಂಬರಿ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಪ್ರವಾಸ ಕಥನ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಕವಿತೆ ಇರ್ಬೋದು, ಯಾವುದ್ರೊಳಗೂ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತದೆ. ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ರೂಪ ಸ್ವರೂಪ ಎರಡರೊಳಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅನ್ಯಾದೃಶತೆ ಇರುತ್ತದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಕುಮಾರವ್ಯಾಸನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಂತೂ ಹೇಳಲೇಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಹೆಮ್ಮೆ ಪಡಬೇಕಾದ ಕವಿ, ಅನುವಾದಕ್ಕೆ ಅತೀತನಾದ ಕವಿ. ಯಾರೊಬ್ಬನೂ ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗೋಲ್ಲ. ನನಗೆ ಸುಮಾರು ಒಂದು 10 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರು ಒಂದು 5 ಕುಮಾರವ್ಯಾಸನ ಪದ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುವಾದ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂದರು. ಇಂದಿನವರೆಗೂ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಏಕೆಂದರೆ ಕುಮಾರವ್ಯಾಸ ಅಷ್ಟು ಕನ್ನಡ. ಅವನ ಕನ್ನಡ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಬೇರೊಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಏನೂ ಅದನ್ನು ತಿದ್ದೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆ ಥರದ್ದಿದೆ. ನೋಡಿ, ಅಪಕೀರ್ತಿನಾರಿಯ ಸೆರಗ ಹಿಡಿದರು ಅಂತಾನೆ. ಕೌರವರು ಅಪಕೀರ್ತಿನಾರಿಯ ಸೆರಗಿಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದರು ಅಂತ. ಇದನ್ನು ಇಂಗ್ಲೀಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಆಗುವಂಥದ್ದೆಲ್ಲ ಇದು ಅಚ್ಚ ಕನ್ನಡದ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿರುವಂಥದ್ದು. ಮತ್ತು ಅವಳು ಹೇಳ್ತಾಳೆ, ಯಮಸುತಂಗರ್ಹುವನೆ ಧರ್ಮಕ್ಷಮೆಯ ಗರ ಬಡಿದಿಹುದು ಅಂತ. ಗರ ಅನ್ನುವ ಶಬ್ದ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತದ ಗ್ರಹ ಶಬ್ದದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರುವ ತದ್ಭವ. ಆದರೆ ಗ್ರಹ ಬಡ್ದಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಗರ ಬಡ್ದಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಉಂಟು. ಇದನ್ನು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಗ್ರಹ ಅಂತಲೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಅವಾಗ ಪರಿಣಾಮ ಹೊರಟೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಕುಮಾರವ್ಯಾಸ ದೇವಭಾಷೆಯನ್ನಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಕ್ಕೂ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಬರ್ತಾನೆ. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ವಿಶೇಷವಾದ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯ, ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಅನೂಹ್ಯವಾದ ರೀತಿ ಅಂತ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತದೆ. ಅವನು ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ನೋಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ಅದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಣಾಮದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೃದಯಂಗಮವಾಗಿದೆಯೋ ಭಾವನೆಯಲ್ಲಿಯೂ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ, ದುರ್ಯೋಧನ ಸತ್ತಾಗ ಅವನು ರುಧಿರದ ತಿಲಕವಾದೆನಲೈ ಧರಂಗನೆಗೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ. ಭೂಮಿ ಅನ್ನುವ ಸುಂದರಿಗೆ ರಕ್ತದ ತಿಲಕ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟ ಅಂತ. ಪಂಪಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ದುರ್ಯೋಧನ ನೆಲವನ್ನು ಅಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡು ಸತ್ತನಂತೆ, ಸತ್ರೂ ಈ ನೆಲವನ್ನು ಬಿಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ನಮ್ಮ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಮಹೋದಯರುಗಳೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವ್ರ ಕಾಲ ಮುಗಿದು ಎಷ್ಟು ವರ್ಷ ಆದರೂ ಅವರು ಕ್ವಾರ್ಟರ್ಸ್ಗಳಿಂದ ಹೋಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಹೋಗಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಬಂದರೆ ಕಾರ್ಪೆಟ್ಗಳು, ಕರ್ಟನ್ಗಳು, ಕಮೋಡ್ಗಳಂತ ಕೂಡ ಹೊತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಪತ್ರಿಕೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಧ್ಯಮಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ದುರ್ಯೋಧನ ಹಾಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರೊಳಗೆ ಏನೂ ತಪ್ಪಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವನು ಇವರೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಫೋರ್ ಫಾದರ್. ಅಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡು ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ ನೆಲವನ್ನು. ಕುಮಾರವ್ಯಾಸ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, ರುಧಿರದ ತಿಲಕವಾದನಲೈ ಧರಂಗನೆಗೆ ಅಂತ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಾರಸ್ಯ ನೋಡಿ, ಭೂಮಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಹೆಣ್ಣಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ದ. ಹೆಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಒಂದು ರಕ್ತಸಿಕ್ತವಾದ ಮೈಯನ್ನೇ ತಿಲಕವಾಗಿ ಮಾಡ್ದ. ಅಂದರೆ ಏನರ್ಥ? ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ ಸೂಚಕ. ಇವನು ಅಂದುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದ ನಾನು ಪೃಥ್ವೀಪತಿ ಪೃಥ್ವೀಪತಿ ಪೃಥ್ವೀ ವಲ್ಲಭ ಅಂತ. ಇವನ ಹೆಣವನ್ನೇ ತನಗೆ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ತಿಲಕ ಆಗಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಹಸೆ ಮಣೆಗೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ತಾಳೆ. ಧರ್ಮರಾಜ ಬಂದು ಕೈ ಹಿಡಿತಾನೆ. ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಭೂಮಿಗೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಯೌವನ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಎನ್ನುವ ಮಾತನ್ನು ಅದೆಷ್ಟು ಪರಿಣಾಮವಾಗಿ, ಅದೆಷ್ಟು ಮಾರ್ಮಿಕವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವ ಒಂದು ವಿಶೇಷ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಅಡಕವಾಗಿ ಸಾಂದ್ರವಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು. ಕಾಳಿದಾಸ ಅವನನ್ನು ಹೇಳದೆ ಯಾವ ಕಾವ್ಯ ಸಮಾರಂಭ ತಾನೇ ಮುಗಿಯೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಕಾಳಿದಾಸನಿಗೆ ತನ್ನ ತಿಳಿವನ್ನು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ತೋರ್ಪಡಿಸಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಗೊತ್ತು. ಹೀ ನೋಸ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರಾಪರ್ಟಿ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್. ಅವನು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೇಗಿರಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಮಾತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾನೆ. ದಿಲೀಪನ ವರ್ತನೆಯಿಂದ ಜ್ಞಾನೇ ಮೌನಂ ಕ್ಷಮಾಶಕ್ತವು ತ್ಯಾಗೇ ಶ್ಲಾಘಾ ವಿಪರ್ಯಯ ಗುಣ ಗುಣಾನುಬಂಧಿತ್ವಾತ್ ತಸ್ಯ ಸಪ್ರಸವ ಇವ ಅಂತ. ದಿಲೀಪನ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಅವನ ಮೌನದಲ್ಲಿತ್ತು, ಅವನ ಬಲ ಅವನ ತಾಳ್ಮೆನಲ್ಲಿತ್ತು, ಅವನ ಔದಾರ್ಯ ಅವನ ಪ್ರಶಂಸೆಗೆ ಬಾಯಿ ಬಿಡದೇ ಇರುವಂಥದ್ದೊಳಗಿತ್ತು. ಅಂದರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಇದ್ದರೂ ನಮಗೆ ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತು ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೌನ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದದ್ದು. ಸೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕ್ಸ್ ಸೋ ಮೆನಿ ವಾಲ್ಯೂಮ್ಸ್. ಸಂಗೀತದಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಡುವಾಗ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕಲ್ ಸೈಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. ಮ್ಯೂಸಿಕಲ್ ಪಾಸಸ್ ಇರಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಹಾಗೆ ಚಿತ್ರಶಿಲ್ಪಗಳು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ರಾಶಿ ಹಾಕಿಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಆರ್ಟ್ ಗ್ಯಾಲರಿಗಳಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ದೇ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೆಡ್ ಇನ್ ಸಚ್ ಎ ವೇ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಕಂಫರ್ಟಬಲ್ ಈಸ್ಥೆಟಿಕ್ ಸ್ಪೇಸ್ ಅಂತಾರೆ. ನಡು ಬಿಡ್ತಿ ಇರಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. ಹೀಗೆ ಜ್ಞಾನೇ ಮೌನಂ. ಇನ್ನು ಎಷ್ಟು ಶಕ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದವನಿಗೂ ಅದನ್ನು ಹಿಡಿದಿಡುವಂಥ ತಾಳ್ಮೆ ಇಲ್ಲದಿದ್ದರೆ ಕಷ್ಟ. ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಅಮೇರಿಕಾ ಏನಾಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಹೀಗೆ ಕ್ಷಮಾಶಕ್ತವು. ಇನ್ನು ತ್ಯಾಗ, ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿಕೊಳ್ಳದೆ ಇರೋದು. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಉಪನಿಷತ್ತಿನ ಅದೇ ಬರ್ತದೆ. ಹ್ರಿಯಾದೇಯಂ ಭಿಯಾದೇಯಂ, ಕೊಡುವಾಗ ನಾಚಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು, ಭಯಪಟ್ಟು ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ನಾನು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು ಯಾರಿಗೇನಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಅಂತ. KV ಅಯ್ಯರ್ ಅಂತ ನಮ್ಮ ಮೈಸೂರು ಅರಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಾರಾಜರಿಗೆ ಅಂಗ ಸಂವಾಹನ, ವ್ಯಾಯಾಮ ಇತ್ಯಾದಿಗಳ ಸಹಾಯವನ್ನು ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದವರು. ದೊಡ್ಡ ಲೇಖಕರೂ ಆದರು. ನನ್ನ ದೂರದ ಬಂಧುಗಳು ಕೂಡ. ಅವರ ರೂಪದರ್ಶಿ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಅದ್ಭುತವಾದ ಕಾದಂಬರಿ ಇದೆ. ರೀಡರ್ ಡೈಜೆಸ್ಟ್ನ ಒಂದು ಪುಟದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದ ಕಥೆಯನ್ನು 300 ಪುಟಗಳ ಕಾದಂಬರಿ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಥರದೊಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶ ಬರುತ್ತದೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಏನೋ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ಸಾಹದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೊಟ್ಟುಬಿಟ್ರೆ ತೊಗೊಂಡವ್ರಿಗೆ ಅದು ಏನು ತೊಂದರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟುಬಿಡ್ತು ಅಂತ. ಬಡವನಿಗೆ ಆನೆ ದಾನ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಂತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿಬಿಡ್ತದೆ ಅಂತ. ಈ ತರಹ ಹೀಗೆ ಒಂದು ಗುಣಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಗುಣ ವಿರುದ್ಧ. ಪಾಂಡಿತ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಮೌನ ವಿರುದ್ಧ, ಬಲಕ್ಕೆ ತಾಳ್ಮೆ ವಿರುದ್ಧ, ಔದಾರ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಶಂಸಾ ವಿಮುಖತೆ ವಿರುದ್ಧ. ಹೀಗಿರುವ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ಗುಣಗಳನ್ನು ಸೇರಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದ ಅಂತ. ಮತ್ತು ಅವನು ಹೇಗಿದ್ದ? ಜುಗೋ ಪದ್ಮಾನ ಮತ್ರಸ್ಥೋ ಭೇಜೆ ಧರ್ಮಮನಾತುರ ಅಗೃದ್ಧರು ಅದದೇ ಸ್ವರ್ಥಾನ್ ಅಸಕ್ತ ಸುಖಮನ್ವಭೂತ್. ಅವನಿಗೆ ಸಾವಿನ ಭಯ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ಶರೀರವನ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ. ಅವನಿಗೆ ನರಕದ ಭಯವಿಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡ್ದ. ಅವನಿಗೆ ದುರಾಸೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ದುಡ್ಡನ್ನು ಸಂಪಾದಿಸ್ದ. ಮತ್ತು ಅವನಿಗೆ ಅಂಟು ಇಲ್ಲ, ಮೋಹವಿಲ್ಲ, ಆದರೆ ಸುಖಪಟ್ಟ ಅಂತ. ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಜೀವನ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಹಿಡಿದಿಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನೋಡಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸಾರವತ್ತಾಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ವ್ಯಾಯಾಮ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಯಾವುದೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಆರೋಗ್ಯ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರಬೇಕು, ದೇಹ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಪಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಆದರೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಸಾವಿನ ಭಯವಿಲ್ಲ, ದೇಹವನ್ನು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಪಾಡಿಕೊಂಡ. ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ನಮಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಬಾರಿ ಬರುವ ಕಷ್ಟ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂದರೆ, ಭಯವಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಬದುಕೋದು ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂತ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋಲ್ಲ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಅವನಿಗೆ ನರಕದ ಭೀತಿ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಮಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಬಾರಿ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಯಾವ ಜನ್ಮ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಮತ್ತು ಯಾವುದು ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೋ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ನಮಗೆ ಪರಲೋಕದ ಭಯವೇ ಇಹಲೋಕದಲ್ಲಿ ಬದುಕೋ ಥರ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಹಾಗಲ್ಲದೆ ಅವನು ಮಾಡ್ದ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ತುಂಬ ಜನ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಷ್ನಲ್ ಪಾವರ್ಟಿ ಪ್ರೊಫೆಸರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆಗಿಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಬಾರ್ದು. ವೇದ ಹೇಳುತ್ತದೆ, 100 ಕೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಸಂಪಾದಿಸಿ 1000 ಕೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂಥ. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಸಿನ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಪ್ರಾಸ್ಪರಸ್. ಸಂಪತ್ತಿ ಒಂದು ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ, ಆದರೆ ಅದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ವಿತರಣೆಗೆ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕೆಲಸಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಅದನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದ. ಮತ್ತು ಅಂಟಿಲ್ಲದೆ ಸುಖಪಟ್ಟ ಅಂತ. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಬಾರಿ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಸುಖ ಪಡುವಲ್ಲೂ ಸಂಕೋಚ ಇರುತ್ತದೆ. ಒಂದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುವ ಊಟ ಮಾಡಿ ಪಾಯ ಚಪ್ಪರಿಸಬಾರ್ದು ಅಂತ, ತಟ್ಟೆನಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಂತಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ, ಪೂರ್ತಿ ತಿನ್ನೋಣ ಏನೀಗ. ಹೀಗೆ ಫುಲ್ಲೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಆಲ್ ದಿ ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಡೀಸೆಂಟ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ಸ್ ಪಾಸಿಬಲ್. ಈ ರೈಷಿಯಸ್ ಎಂಜಾಯ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಗೆ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನೆವರ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್, ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನೆವರ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಕರ್ಟೈಲ್ಡ್ ಅನ್ನುವ ದೃಷ್ಟಿ. ಕಾಳಿದಾಸ ಹೀಗೆ ಈ ಎಸೆನ್ಸನ್ನು ತಂದು ಮುಂದೆ ಇಡ್ತಾನೆ. ನಾನು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಸ್ತ್ರೀವರ್ಣನೆಯಿಂದ ಉದಾಹರಣೆಯಿಂದ ಆರಂಭ ಮಾಡಿದೆ, ಸ್ತ್ರೀವರ್ಣನೆಯಿಂದಾನೇ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. ಕಾಳಿದಾಸ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ. ಪಾರ್ವತಿ ಶಿವನಿಗಾಗಿ ತಪಸ್ಸು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಲು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಅವಳ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ನೋಡಿ ಶಿವ ಏನೂ ಮರುಳಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ. ತತ್ಕ್ಷಣ ಈ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನಿಸ್ಬಿಡ್ತಂತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ? ಪ್ರಿಯೇಶು ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯ ಫಲ ಹಿ ಚಾರುತ. ಹಿ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ ಎ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ಡೆಫಿನಿಷನ್ ಟು ಬ್ಯೂಟಿ. ಸೌಂದರ್ಯ ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು? ನಮಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟವಾದವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಯಾರ್ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸಿದ್ರೆ ಅಪಾಯವೇ ಆಗಿಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾದವ್ರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಶಿವನಿಗೆ ಇದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಲೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಅವಳು ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ಲು? ತನ್ನ ಕಣ್ಣಿನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಜಿಂಕೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇಟ್ಲಂತೆ, ನಗುವಿನ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಹೂಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಇಟ್ಲಂತೆ, ಮೈಯ ಸೌಂದರ್ಯವನ್ನು ಬಳ್ಳಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಡೆಪಾಸಿಟ್ ಆಗಿಟ್ಲಂತೆ. ಅಂದರೆ ಕವಿ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾನೆ, ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಹೀಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಇಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಲ ಹೋಗೋದೇ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗೋಲ್ಲ. ವಿ ನೆವರ್ ಫೀಲ್ ಔಟ್ಡೇಟೆಡ್. ದ ಗ್ರೇಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅಶ್ಯೂರೆನ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ಈಸ್ ವಿ ನೆವರ್ ಫೀಲ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಔಟ್ಡೇಟೆಡ್. ದಟ್ ಫಿಯರ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಫೋಮೋ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಫಿಯರ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೂಸಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ ಅಂತ, ಮಿಸ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್ ಅಂತ, ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ನೆವರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ ವಿತ್ ದಿ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕ್ಸ್. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷವಾಗಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಕಾರಣ ಈ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಕಲ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್, ಅಭಿಜಾತ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ, ಅದಕ್ಕಿರುವ ಋಣವನ್ನು ಈ ಕೆಲವು ನಿಮಿಷ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಹಂಚಿಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕಾಯಿತು. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ ತಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಶೇಷತಃ ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮವನ್ನು ಆಯೋಜನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೈಸೂರಿನ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಸಂಭ್ರಮದ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಹೋದರಿಯರಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ಅದ್ಭುತ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ. ಇದು ತುಂಬ ದೊಡ್ಡದು. 100 ವರ್ಷ ಕಾಣಲಿ ಇದು, ಮತ್ತು ಮುಂದುವರಿಯಲಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ಇವತ್ತು ಮತ್ತು ನಾಳೆ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯದ ಕುರಿತಾದ 10 ಗೋಷ್ಠಿಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಲಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಅವುಗಳಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಮುನ್ನುಡಿಯಂತಿತ್ತು ಈಗ ನಾವು ಕೇಳಿದ ಉಪನ್ಯಾಸ. ಈ ಸಂಭ್ರಮದ ಉತ್ಸವಕ್ಕೆ ಭವ್ಯವಾದ ಆರಂಭವನ್ನು ದೊರಕಿಸಿಕೊಟ್ಟ ಶತಾವಧಾನಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಆರ್ ಗಣೇಶ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಮೈಸೂರು ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಸಂಭ್ರಮದ ವತಿಯಿಂದ ಆತ್ಮೀಯವಾದ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಗಳು. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು ಸರ್.
Flights of contemplation, a bird's eye view of the nation in a flux. What does India look like from above through the eyes of those who have observed its transformations, aspirations, and contradictions across decades? Join veteran journalist and columnist Shankar Belloor in conversation with aviation pioneer and entrepreneur Captain G.R. Gopinath as they reflect on a nation in constant motion. From public life and policy to entrepreneurship, social change, and the dreams that shape modern India, this promises to be a thought-provoking dialogue on where we are and where we might be headed. Captain Gopinath is best known for democratizing air travel in India through Air Deccan and has long been an advocate of innovation, accessibility, and inclusive growth. Mr. Gopinath, could you please join us on stage? Mr. Shankar Bellur, could you please come on stage? Shubha, could you please come on stage? Calling Mrs. Shubha Sanjayars on stage. I'll start. Yeah. Please join us in welcoming our distinguished panelists. Before we begin today's discussion, we have the pleasure of releasing another book, If Gandhi Retrieved, a novel of the Second Independence by Rudrappa C. What to do? Okay.
The next.
May I request Mrs. Shubha Sanjayars to join us on stage? Yeah. Mr. Rudrappa, could you please join us on stage to release the book? Waiting for Mrs. Shubha Sanjayars to come on stage. I request Mrs. Shubha Sanjayars to release the book. Mr. Captain Gopinath also to release the book. Congratulations, Mr. Rudrappa. Thank you, Shubha, Captain Gopinath, and Mr. Shankar Belloor. We now begin the panel discussion.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನಮಗೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಶತಾವಧಾನಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ರಾ ಗಣೇಶ್ ಅವರು ಮಾತಾಡಿ ಹೋಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಐ ಬಿಲೀವ್ ದರ್ಸ್ ಲಾಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಎನರ್ಜಿ ಇನ್ ದ ಹಾಲ್. ಸೊ ಐ ಫೀಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಎನರ್ಜೈಸ್ಡ್ ಇಫ್ ಐ ಗೆಟ್ ಸಮ್ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಆಡಿಯನ್ಸ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರ ಪರವಾಗಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಟನ್ ಗೋಪಿನಾಥ್ನ ಐ ಆಮ್ ವೆಲ್ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಮ್ ಟು ದ ಪ್ಯಾನಲ್. ಎ ವೆರಿ ರೇರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ವಿಶ್ಡ್ ಪರ್ಸ್ನಾಲಿಟಿ ಹಿ ಈಸ್. ನನಗೆ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ younger to him, I was always fascinated whenever I read something about Captain Gopinath. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೋದು, anyone who is born post-independence, in the 50s, 60s, probably till 80s, ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಪ್ಪ ಅಮ್ಮ ಅಥವಾ any of our guardians or any of our relatives, teachers would have said something to us. ಹಾಸಿಗೆ ಇದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲು ಚಾಚು. I believe most of our generation, we know this? Yeah. I always believed that ಹಾಸಿಗೆ ಇದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲು ಚಾಚು is a very limiting belief, limiting thought. ಅಂದರೆ ಆವಾಗ ಕಾಲಮಾನ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದೇ ಹಾಗೆ. Because our economic development was so flawed. Our GDP growth rate was being mocked by the entire world as Hindu growth rate because we were simply not able to grow beyond 4 to 4.5 percentage points. ಅಂಥ ಕಾಲಘಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಟನ್ ಗೋಪಿನಾಥ್. And there was no concept of middle class back then. Either we were poor or from lower middle class, most of us. We were actually struggling to make our living, make a career and make a future. So ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಆಗಲಿ ಹಾಸಿಗೆ ಇದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಕಾಲು ಚಾಚು ಅಂದರೆ we used to accept it. We almost got conditioned to that thought. But I feel, there are very few who did not restrict themselves to this thought. They did not got themselves imprisoned by this thought. ಅವ್ರು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮಲ್ಲಿ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಮನಸ್ಸಿದ್ದರೆ ಮಾರ್ಗ, ಧೈರ್ಯಂ ಸರ್ವತ್ರ ಸಾಧನಂ ಅಂತ. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಸರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಎ ವೆರಿ ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್, ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಅಪ್ಬ್ರಿಂಗಿಂಗ್. ಹಳ್ಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು, ಹಳ್ಳಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆದಿದ್ದು, ನಮ್ಮ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಯಾದ ಹಾಸನದ ಗೊರೂರು. ಅವರು ಸಹ ಈ ಥಾಟ್ನ ಅವ್ರ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಟಿ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಹಿ ಕುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಹಿಸ್ ಲೈಫ್. But he didn't do it. At some stage in his life, air Deccan happened. ಒಂದು ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು 30-40 ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೂಟ್ರ್ ಅಥವಾ ಬೈಕ್ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಆ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಅರೈವ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ಲೈಫ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಮೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಎ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸೊಸೈಟಿ. ಬಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಜೆಂಟಲ್ಮನ್, ವೇರ್ ವಿ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಥಾಟ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಏರ್, ಒಬ್ಬ ಪ್ಯಾಸೆಂಜರ್ ಆಗಿ ಏರೋಪ್ಲೇನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹಾರಾಟ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನನ್ನ ಜನ್ಮ ಸಾರ್ಥಕ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂದ್ಕೊತಿದ್ದ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲುಕ್ ಅಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಪರ್ಸನ್, ಹೀ ಸೆಡ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ನಾಟ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಫ್ಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಐ ವುಡ್ ಬಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆ್ಯನ್ ಏರ್ಲೈನ್. ವಾಟ್ ಎ ಥಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್. ಎಷ್ಟು ಧೈರ್ಯ ಇರಬೇಕು ಕ್ಯಾಪ್ಟನ್ಗೆ ಟು ಈವನ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ದಟ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಪುಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಫ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಡಿಡ್ ಹಿ ಪುಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಫ್? He not only thought about it, he not only aspired to start an airline, he did it and did it successfully. So on all your behalf, I want to start this discussion by asking Captain, sir, how did Air Deccan happen?
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ. ನಾನು ಲೆಟ್ ಮಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಅ ಲಿಟಲ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದ ಬಿಗಿನಿಂಗ್. ನಾನು ಬೆಳೆದಿದ್ದು ಗೊರೂರಲ್ಲಿ. ಅದೊಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಗ್ರಾಮ, ಪುಟ್ಟ ಗ್ರಾಮ. ಹಾಯ್ ಅರುಣ್. ದಿ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ವಿಲೇಜ್, ವೆರಿ ಪಿಕ್ಚರಸ್ಕ್ ವಿಲೇಜ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಬಾರ್ಡರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಲ್ನಾಡ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಗೊರೂರ್ ರಾಮಸ್ವಾಮಿಂಗ, ಮೈ ಗ್ರ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಂಕಲ್, ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ಹಿ ರೈಟ್ಸ್, ಒಂದು ಸೀರೆನಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಸೀರೆ ಅಂಚು ಈಸ್ ಮೋರ್ ಬ್ಯೂಟಿಫುಲ್ ದೆನ್ ದ ಬಾಡಿ. ಸೊ ಮಲೆನಾಡಿಗಿಂತ ಮಲೆನಾಡಿನ ಅಂಚಿನಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಗೊರೂರು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಒಂದು ಹಳ್ಳಿ. ಅದು ಹೇಮಾವತಿ ನದಿಯ ದಡದಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಐ ವೆಂಟ್ ಬೇರ್ಫುಟ್ ಟು ಯರ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್. ಐ ಸ್ಟಡಿಡ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಕನ್ನಡ ಮೀಡಿಯಂ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಮೈ ಫಾದರ್ ಪುಟ್ ಮೀ ಟು ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇನ್ ದ 5th standard. ಆಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಕೂಲಲ್ಲಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಬಟ್ ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಹಿಮ್ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಎ ಟೀಚರ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಸ್ ದೇ. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಹಿ ಸೆಡ್ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಒಂದು ಥರದ ಜೈಲ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗೆ. ನಿನ್ನ ಮುಂದಿನ ಜೀವನವನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಸಮ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್. ಸೊ ನೀನು ಎಷ್ಟು ದಿವಸ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಆಟ ಆಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿರೋ. ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಶಿವರಾಮ್ ಕಾರಂತ್ or Tagore style. So till my 5th standard, all my education was when my father took me around, taught me swimming in the village. He never showed me the sahukar. ಪ್ರತಿ ಹಳ್ಳಿಯಲ್ಲೊಬ್ಬರು ಸಾಹುಕಾರ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ನಮ್ಮೂರಲ್ಲಿ ಒಬ್ಬರು ಇದ್ದರು ಸಾಹುಕಾರ ಸಂಪತ್ ಅಯ್ಯಂಗಾರ್ ಅಂತ. ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಗಾದೆ ಇದೆ, ದುಡ್ಡಿಲ್ಲ ಕಾಸಿಲ್ಲ ಸಂಪತ್ ಅಯ್ಯಂಗಾರ್, ರೆಕ್ಕೆ ಇಲ್ಲ ಪುಕ್ಕ ಇಲ್ಲ ಗರುಡ ಅಯ್ಯಂಗಾರ್ ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನಿಜವಾದ ಸಂಪತ್ ಅಯ್ಯಂಗಾರ್, ಹಾಸನ ಜಿಲ್ಲೆಗೆಲ್ಲ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಸಾಹುಕಾರು. ಹಿ ನೆವರ್ ಶೋಡ್ ಮೀ ದ ರಿಚ್ ಮ್ಯಾನ್ ಇನ್ ದ ವಿಲೇಜ್, ಹಿ ವುಡ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ಶೋ ಮೀ ದ ದಲಿಟ್ಸ್. ಬಟ್ ಟು ಡ್ರೀಮ್, he read to me stories of Tagore, Gandhi, Socrates, Napoleon, even in those days. And that's where I'm coming to. It's all about dreaming. Dreams create your future. It's Walt Disney who said, if you can dream it, you can do it. So ನಾನು 7ನೇ ಕ್ಲಾಸಲ್ಲಿ ತರಗತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, when I was in my 7th standard, my headmaster in the village came and said, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರಾದರೂ ಮಿಲಿಟರಿ ಸ್ಕೂಲ್ಗೆ want to write an exam, because they were introducing the military school, the Sainik school, for the first time in Karnataka in the 1960s, because there was hardly anybody in the army from Karnataka then and even today. And just like there's nobody from Gujarat, right? Though, so when I did not know what a military school was, so I asked my father, ಇವತ್ತು ನೀವು ಹಳ್ಳಿಲಿ ಹೋದರೆ, you can see in the villages, even in Goror today, military hotel means ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಂಸ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. Then you can join the military-ನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಂಸ ತಿಂತಾರೆ. That's why it's military hotel. You don't say non-vegetarian hotel, it's military hotel, ವೀರಶೈವರ ಹೋಟೆಲ್, ಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣರ ಹೋಟೆಲ್. So my father, himself a vegetarian, he said, ನೀನು ಹೋಗು, ಮಾಂಸ ತಿನ್ನು, ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತೀಯ ಅಂತ. So I was a small bullied boy in the school, so I just said, okay, maybe. And in that sense of, it was more a dream to get out of the village. Puthi Narasimhachar, one of the great poets of Karnataka, has written in one place, I keep quoting it. It says, Gudiyache Gidadache Gadiyache Hogona Bandiro Hosanadige. Beyond the temple, beyond the woods, beyond the borders, let's go and discover new lands yonder. I think André Gide, the French poet, has said it in a different manner. He said, if you want to discover new lands, you have to be away from the shore for a long time. And the safest way to be safe is not to buy a boat, but to build a house on the land. Because if you have a ship, it has to sail. And when you sail the high seas, you will probably not reach the other side. We all know the story of Columbus. I think it is alleged that when Columbus stood in the edge of Europe, when it was not known the earth was round, before Copernicus' time, he stood at the edge of Europe and then looked at the ocean. And he thought, if the earth is flat, if I'm standing on the land, there must be land on the other side. So he went to the Italian kings, he was from Italy, and asked for some funds. He said, I want to discover India, the land of spices and silk and gold. But the Italian kings didn't believe him. The Spanish kings gave him the money. I think it was the first venture capital. And He discovered America, West Indies, and America instead of discovering India. But they changed the course of the world. Because the Spanish Armada then, that's how it conquered half the world along with the British. The Spanish Navy became the mightier navy than the English Navy. After English today, Spanish is the most spoken language. So it is not resources. As C.K. Prahalad once very famously said, it's being resourceful. So if you have very high resources and very small aspirations, it is a recipe for disaster. So high dreams and low resources is how all success is made. You know, as we know that Galileo discovered the new world from the opera glasses. Nothing as significant has been done after him. So why I'm saying all this is that you asked me, you know, how did I think of aviation? I'll come to that. So it is, you know, it's Goethe, the German poet, who said, dare to dream and begin it. Dare to dream and begin it. Genius has magic and power to it. But it's not enough to dream. Your dream must be combined with adventure. But Rudyard Kipling in some other place says, if you can dream but not make dreams your master. So there is some tempering, you know, you can't just dream and go crazy. If you can dream but not make dreams your master. If you can trust thyself when all others about you are doubting you, but make allowances for their doubting too. You know, you trust yourself. That is the first secret of success. So you have to have that inner belief in yourself, in what you're seeing. And vision is a paradox in the sense that vision is the art of seeing the invisible. You know, vision is seeing. The art of the invisible is the future. So all entrepreneurs in a way, all scientists, they are people who are seeing a future which normally others don't see. So if you are believing in yourself, you have to have that obsession to the point of madness to follow the dream, which requires a courage of conviction. And that's the reason I said dreams create your future. So in that sense, I left my village and joined the Sainik school. Then I wrote the UPSC exam and joined the Indian National Defense Academy in Khadakwasla. Then I joined the Indian Military Academy in Dehradun. And the war, 71 war broke out, so my course was cut short. I went to the East Pakistan war. Bangladesh didn't exist then. It was East Pakistan and West Pakistan. 10 million refugees had come into India. Today, sometimes I wonder because you have a few thousand immigrants, we all get totally worked up. Immigrants make a nation. America is what it is today. It's because of immigrants. Though there's a madman now is against immigrants. Immigrants make a nation. If you look at Bangalore, the sign of a vibrant city is immigrants. And we are all, in a sense, immigrants. All of us are immigrants. Raman is an immigrant from Tamil Nadu to Karnataka. I'm myself an immigrant, maybe because I have an anger. But God knows when my they came with Ramanuja probably to Chennai. And why did Ramanuja come there? Because he was persecuted in Tamil Nadu. Because he started his own Vishishta Advaita, which was against Shankara Advaita, and the king was Shankara's follower, the Chola kings. So they ordered him to be killed, and Ramanuja came to Karnataka. Why I'm saying all this, I'm putting it in some context today, which is also, I thought was the reason I was coming here to discuss my new book, which maybe we'll do. I think there is a sense of disquiet in India because of these forces of, on the one hand, there is the appeasement, as they call, which when it goes beyond a point, there's a Hindu backlash. And so this, the title of my Crucible, a civilization in a flux. So why I'm telling this is that when military rule was imposed on East Pakistan by West Pakistan, the reason was East Pakistan is Bengali, culturally, ethnically, they were Bengalis. They look different, they speak Bengali, and as against the Pashtuns and the Punjabis who are tall and, different ethnicity, except the religion is Islam. But there was a huge feeling that East Bengal was getting motherly stepson treatment. So Sheikh Mujibur Rahman rebelled, was an MP, and he was put under arrest. There was a huge uprising, and he gave a call to the army not to obey. He gave a call to the police not to obey. Martial law was imposed, and it was ruthless. A lot of women were raped. They were imprisoned so that the men will not leave the country. And this is not fiction I'm telling. And the reason why it happened was there was a feeling, like today sometimes you're listening to that, even in India, the South is rising against the North because of various reasons. So we need to integrate ourselves. But it was too late, and Bangladesh happened because of this kind of schism that was there between the East and West Pakistan. So millions of people came, and 10 million came into India. Then it was untenable, and those 10 million were put up in refugee camps. They were given shelter, they were given blankets, they were given food during Indira Gandhi's time. And the war was declared, and I was 20, and all my batchmates, our training was cut short. We straight away went to the war, and I was in East Pakistan, and the other side was West Pakistan. And actually 3 months before, the Indian Army was already training the Mukti Bahinis in Bangladesh. They were already inside Pakistan, skirmishes had started. And so I went in along with my unit to the attack. And the war was over in 15 days, because when you have a demoralized army, a depraved army, which is committing loot and rapes, it is an army which has lost all local support. Morals are not there. So it was easy to win that war for the Indian Army. That was one of the main reasons, apart from the great campaign that has happened. So after the war, I came back to the Chinese border in Nathula, Chola area at 15,000 feet. Then I was in Sikkim, China border. Then I was in Kashmir. And one day I said, after 8 years of training, 8 years in the army, I must do something on my own. So it was 6,500 rupees. That's my money amount, which I got as a gratuity because I had not put in a pensionable service. The salary that I drew at that time was 1,300 rupees, which is a normal salary, and IAS, IPS officer got. It was a bit higher than them because I was in the high altitude. I came home. And I came home to my lands, because my parents were getting old, and they had built a dam across the river Gorur. So all the lands of my family were submerged. So they had given lands in a remote place. So I asked my father, where are the lands that he got in compensation? He said, people are becoming doctors and engineers in my family, chartered accountants. You all left the army and come back. What are you going to do? I said, I want to do farming. He said, we're all leaving farming, which is true. It's not easy. And my father kept telling me, I think, what a madman you are. You know, we spent all my dreams and resources on you to become an officer, and you left everything and come back. But I somehow felt that if the army has given me that kind of training, I should be able to make a life for myself. I never once thought that I will not be able to make a living. I said, if I have a small patch of land, that blind optimism which got me into trouble all the time in my life and also got me out of trouble, that propelled me to take up farming. And for the next 10 years, I picked up a tent from army second-hand shop, took a Doberman dog, and went to my farm and pitched a tent there. And like they say, like all farmers, I got into debt, and I got out of debt. I think you had to go through, to see heaven, you had to go through the gates of hell. And that's true. But one thing I learned when I was a farmer, looking at other farmers then and today, is that though there are cases of distress and suicides, I think the thing that comes out in farming is that you will never see a farmer not getting up in the morning with optimism. He never disbelieves that tomorrow the sun will not shine, tomorrow it will not rain, that if he sows the seeds, that it will not sprout. I think that is the optimism that is needed for our youth today, because there's things which are bad, things are sometimes depressing, there's so much of communal tension, communal conflict, social conflict. There's huge wealth on one side. A lot of good things have happened, but at the same time there's huge poverty. As we know that we've got the third largest billionaires in the world, third largest millionaires in the world, almost a middle class, not as much as Europe in terms of living standard, but a huge middle class. But we also have the highest number of malnutrition, highest number of infant mortality, highest number of people below in the hunger level, hunger index in all this. So it is easy to become cynical. Cynicism is slow suicide. You can't give up, and each of us must do what we can to make this a better place. So in that sense, you know, I stuck to farming for 10 years, but farming was difficult, so I did various things. I had an Enfield motorcycle in those days. I came to Hassan to get my bike repaired, and it was getting late, it was drizzling, the dealership was closed. So I said, what happened? No, sir, it's closed for the last 3 months. So then an idea came to me. I said, if the dealership is closed here, in those days we didn't have these Yamaha, Suzuki and all that. We had only Enfield motorcycle, SD from Mysore, and then we had the Rajdut with the north. There were no other motorcycles. And Hassan was the regional headquarters between Markera, Hassan and Chikmagalur. I said, and this place needs a motorcycle dealership. So instead of going to my farm in the night by bus, I took a bus to Chennai and went straight to the Enfield managing director's office. And I told the general manager there, saying that I want a dealership. And he said, you're an ex-army officer. Normally people who are dealers are, you know, Marwadis, Gujaratis, you know, Banias. You have no experience. And I said, yes, I have no experience. But what I do know is you are doing a lousy job. You know, there's no dealership in Hassan. You don't even know that it is closed. So I know what a customer wants. So on the spot, he gave me a dealership. So I came and set up a Enfield motorcycle dealership. Then I took a Honda and Luna moped dealership, and I had 8 branches. I had one in Hassan, one in Chikmagalur, and all the other taluk headquarters. So between my dreaming and my doing, there's not much gap. So it's not enough to dream. And as Goethe said, you must begin it, because having the former and not the latter, because there's a gap there. You have to have that leap of faith. And that's what I did. And then I had a Udupi hotel, I had a stockbroking company. Then I did a lot of work in farming, and for which many people do not know, so I want to talk about that a little bit. I got an award called the Rolex Award for entrepreneurship and path-breaking work in silkworm rearing. That gave me a huge brand. I used to be in the paper in those days every day for my farming and sericulture. I used to write articles then. And then I set up an agriculture consultancy company and giving irrigation and micro-irrigation and organic farming, because my entire farming was on organic farming with nature. Then I found that farmers were getting into debt because they were heavily trapped between the money lender who gives you seeds, he gives you pesticides, he gives you manure, and he buys you a crop. So he makes money when it is not to undermine anybody who may be a dealer here, but they give you money for buying the seeds, they give you money pesticides, so they are always in profit. And some of them are also farmers. And they buy you a crop because you're already indebted to him. So that's how I got into natural farming, because I found that nobody fertilizes a prime forest. You don't have any disease in a prime forest. You have diseases only in social forestry and agriculture. So I got into agriculture and converted my entire farm, including today, because I'm still involved in it. I converted it into a totally organic farming with nature as aggressive against nature. And I got out of debt. So then I moved to Bangalore to put my kids to school. They were studying in the local village school there in Hassan. I moved to Bangalore, and there in the army club, when I was playing squash, and some days tennis in the army club, I ran into a colleague of mine, an outstanding helicopter pilot, was a buddy of me during the war in the NDA. He had retired, he was just 42, 43. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm looking for a job. He was a pilot, he was a gallantry award winner against terrorists in Kashmir, but he had no job. And I went to China in 1996 with a delegation of farmers, silk farmers. I was there for about 1 month on an exchange visit, visiting Chinese silk farms. Deep in a rural taluk headquarters, on the bedside I found a book which said Single Window Agency for Investments. This was 1995. And China, which was a communist country, had embraced capitalism shamelessly. Though of course, as long as you didn't criticize the Communist Party, though it was a Communist Party, there was no communism. All the state ownership had gone. And there were karaoke bars, the nightclubs. And one of these Chinese who told me that we felt that if you want investments to come to China, and they had a lot of foreign collaborations then, even now they have, then you need to have social infrastructure. You need to have good nightclubs, you need to have good schools, good hospitals, good education, good life for people who want to come. Otherwise, you will not get talent to come and invest in this country. And I think that's also my worry now, and it should be the worry for all of us today, that our biggest problem is our unhygienic conditions in our towns and cities, the collection of garbage, I don't think you can get foreign investment beyond a point if the country is polluting itself into extinction, if we are choking in our own garbage. And it's true, I think, any criticism is not criticism against the government. It's just showing a mirror to ourselves. You can't walk in any street in Bangalore or even rural India, especially North India. If you're going by train, you can see it. There's no sewages in the streets. I went to Jaisalmer again just recently. It's one of the most beautiful cities. But if you walk through to those Havelis, all the sewage is spilling into the street.
On this observation, Captain, I just want to intervene you for a second. In a very recent interview, Indra Nooyi, the ex-chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, she makes a comparison between India and China in terms of economic growth. And she says, China, since you refer to China's economic growth, she also has the opinion that China was able to grow at that pace only because they didn't have a democracy in China.
No,
and here in India, we have...
I just want to correct myself one thing, or not correct myself. I want to say, I still hold the worst democracy is better than the best dictatorship.
As a rejoinder, that's what I wanted to ask you. Has democracy failed us?
No, democracy, it was Churchill who said that. I think democracy is the worst form of government after all others have been tried. You know, democracy is the worst form of government after all others have been tried. So, whatever may be the faults of democracy, the only way for the future for India is democracy.
Because in the book...
We can't...
because in the book, Captain, you have made this mention that democracy does not promise greatness, it promises course correction.
Yeah. I think, what is democracy? It is actually in a way a science. So I think Richard Feynman said it so beautifully once. He said that it allows you to make mistakes. You do experiments. What does a scientist do? Unlike blind quackery that we have. What does science do? It says science has to accept that it has failed, right? That is the first basic. There has to be an extraordinary honesty in a scientist that when he does an experiment, when it succeeds, he has to ensure that that success is replicated everywhere. Any other scientist will also should be able to. So if you say that an aircraft can fly by using these principles, it can fly anywhere, right? It can fly anywhere, not just in your laboratory. So the thing about democracy is that you try something, it doesn't work, and you throw it out of the window and you keep improving it. You keep improving it. And that's what democracy is about. It is about debate. It is about dialogue. It is about listening to each other and arriving at the solution that works best by throwing out the things that didn't work earlier. And not any one man, any God has an answer to that, right?
Exactly.
That's
and India probably till 2014 was one of the fragile five in terms of its economic status. From fragile five, we have moved on to become one of top 5 economies in the world. Probably we are in the 5th position as of now. So a lot has changed over a period of time. What do you think are the bottlenecks for India to continue to keep its progress?
I think the first thing is I feel that we have to have total transparency in governance. And as we know, we keep hearing, like for example, and let me give you an example because I flirted with AAP for some time, Aam Aadmi Party. The reason why some of us joined AAP, of course I left it after 6 months, that because he promised change, he promised good governance, he promised transparency, right? That's the reason why Congress was then deposed, because he demanded that CBI must become independent of, because the CBI was called a caged parrot during Congress's time, not during the BJP time.
It's even
Though, of
infamous
course,
as a Congress Bureau of Investigation.
yeah. So we know that. So, but successive governments, when they come to power, they all want to hold on to the agencies which can harass the opposition party. It is true of all parties, not so much before Indira Gandhi, but maybe after that. Not maybe, after that. So the question is that whether it was Mamata Banerjee or it is other regional parties, they're all tin pot dictators. It's not just. So he criticized Modi, for example, but he became a bigger authoritarian dictator than Modi. Am I right? Though there is criticism about this government being authoritarian, I think that is the bane of our democracy, because when you do not have internal democracy inside a party, then how can you have democracy in the country, right? Parties are ready to kill each other to have fair elections. They want fair elections. They fight for that. But within their own party, if you criticize a party, you are considered anti-party. And if you criticize the government, you are considered anti-national. Every party, even in West Bengal with Mamata Banerjee, the same thing happened.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a debate within the party so that the elected representatives come and speak to the constituency and ask them what exactly, because once you get elected, they mortgage their soul, body and soul to the party. I mean, that is, they're elected representatives, but they mortgage themselves to the party headquarters. So I think we need to have reforms, and we are sometimes having it, sometimes we're not having it. So I think there's a big churn going on, and therefore I champion, I do not at all envy China blindly. There are certain things we can learn, but obviously a lot of things cannot be done here because of the kind of dictatorship that is there. In China today, you criticize anybody, even if you're Alibaba, you disappear, right? Fortunately, in India, there is criticism against these misuse of agencies, but still there's enough debate going on. You can see enough free speech here.
Yeah.
And I think that is a free democracy means free judiciary, free press, and people of freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Because when there's chaos, only then creativity is there.
Exactly.
You can't have, like V.S. Naipaul said, neither can we have China, nor can we become Singapore or Dubai. A country is not clean roads and flyovers and malls, right?
Captain,
A country is full of culture, education, culture, music, art, and I think we're losing that.
Exactly.
In the governments that are ruling us today. There's not enough emphasis and encouragement for music and art and culture, because without music and art, like Nietzsche said, life without music is a mistake. I'm so also must make a mention. We have a great philanthropist here who is promoting Kannada literature, which I've been hearing. So we have people, and so that's a good. So the thing is, the reason why I said you can't be cynical, because we normally have people coming and saying that everything is bad. Of course it is. Even Purandaradasa said 1,000 years ago, Punyavant, Satyavantarige idu kalavalla. This is not the age of honest people, that he said 1,000 years ago. So this corruption and other things will be there, but we can't be cynical. And we have to have the optimism and the courage to speak up our mind. And the question is, you have to be bipartisan when you criticize. If you can't just criticize the ruling party and completely forget what the opposition is doing. So I think if you have that spirit, I don't think you should be worried about criticizing the government if the intention is to see that they serve society.
Yeah. Captain, since you mentioned Mr. Modi, we can love him or hate him, but we certainly can't ignore him. He is probably the most dominant political figure we have in recent times. So the question is, after Modi who, which you have addressed in your book, more than after Modi who, it's after Modi what? So what do you think after Modi?
So, in fact, Rajiv Sardesai wrote an article, or rather, thing called Jodi Number One. So he said Jodi number one is Modi and Amit Shah, and he said after Modi, will it be Amit Shah or will it be Yogi Adityanath? And I said, you forget that Modi may not retire and Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath may not get a chance. He may contest again. He's in good health, he's very popular, he's in good health again. But my question was much deeper. I said, as we all seen, that Modi, obviously, all of us have the good and bad in us. There is achievement. There is Modi obviously has done a lot of good things. We can't ignore it. Even his many critics abroad who criticize him have acknowledged that there are a lot of things which are good that he has done. But the question is the larger ones. How should Modi be known? What is his legacy? Was my, I think, question in my book. Because we have our statues today, around the world. It is for Buddha, it is for Christ, it is for Shankara, the people who are united, Gandhi, people who unite. So Modi is a master of mixed messages, mixed metaphors, and some of it is political, you can understand. Some of it is probably he is himself not decided. What should he be known for? On the one hand, for example, he eulogizes Savarkar, but he is also one who goes and pays obeisance to Mahatma Gandhi. In a very foreign country he goes, and Swachh Bharat, though it has not fully succeeded because I think there is a huge cultural issue in the country, governance issue. Swachh Bharat is still a great issue that is challenging us. I think it's one of the biggest challenges for us. It was he who did it with Gandhi, right? So on the one hand, on one sleeve he has Gandhi, and another one he has Savarkar. But they were antithetical. Savarkar's philosophy and Gandhi's philosophy were antithetical. Gandhi was probably the greatest Hindu. He died with Ram on his lips. He never visited a temple, but he said Ram Nam is everything for him. The Bhagavad Gita was his guiding light. The greatest Hindu. Even Einstein said generations to come will scarce believe such a one walked this earth. On the other hand, Savarkar was also a great Hindu figure, but his Hindu philosophy was not the same as Gandhi's. But Modi is swearing by Gandhi and he is also swearing by Savarkar. So which path will he choose? In the next 5 years he becomes to power, which I think he will if he contests, because There's no opposition leader today. Somebody may come up. So I think that's what Modi should reflect, because if you see the three great emperors of this country, all these three were called great. Ashoka the Great, his great-grandfather Chandragupta Maurya the Great, and Akbar the Great. These were the three, I think if it's history, these were called the three greats. Chandragupta Maurya went up to Afghanistan, ruthless. He was ruthless in his killing. Ashoka was even more ruthless. He killed all his brothers, uncles, cousins. He spared nobody, right? Chandragupta Maurya became a Jain. From a Hindu, he became a Jain. Ashoka became a Buddhist. And Muslim, who was also ruthless. In the end, he said, it's not possible to unite this country except you bring all religions together. So it is humanism, it is love that unites all of us. Love is the bridge to humanity. So what we had to ask Modi is, how is he going to leave the country behind? Should he be known for one who united the country, or known for someone who has divided the country? I'm sure he will reflect and do the right thing.
Thank you, Captain. Our time's up, but I believe it was a fantastic session with Captain, because we can just go on to share his insightful thoughts which are shared in his upcoming book. But since we have only limited time, I would like to thank all the audience for your participation, and thanks once again, Captain, for your presence.
I'm sure all will agree that this discussion with Captain Gopinath and Professor Shankar Bellur was very exciting. The memories recalled by this pair of eminent Indians was very astute and interesting. The take-home message that dreaming dreams creates the future was very well conveyed. Thank you both for this fascinating discussion. Audience, the books of these two gentlemen are available. Please be sure to get them autographed. Now for the next panel.
We're all set for the next panel. May I invite Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt and Mr. Harish Bhatt onto the dais, please. I would request everybody who wants to talk to our panel to reach the author's signing area so that we can begin the next panel.
What I'm going to tell them is, I'm going to ask
By the time you finish your speech, no,
Yeah,
you introduce me, I'll be back.
don't want to hear that. Just out and left. No, you will. He's a master. Yeah, right. Yeah, they're here. All right. He has just gone to the loop. He doesn't want he doesn't want to listen me introducing him. He said, no. Good afternoon to all of you, and I request all of you to take seats. We are getting too late to start the next session. I appreciate your cooperation. Thank you, audience. Please take your seat. He's coming. Good afternoon to all of you. I have the responsibility of introducing our two corporate guests to the audience. And today we are celebrating the 10th year of our Mysuru Lit Fest with two guests who bring together the very best of leadership and storytelling, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt and Mr. Harish Bhatt. Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt is one of the most respected names in Indian business, best known as a man who led Titan Company as managing director for 17 years, from 2002 to 2019, helping transform it into one of the most admired consumer brands and growing its market value to nearly $13 million. An alumnus of IIT Madras and IIM Ahmedabad, he pioneered modern retail and franchise models in India's lifestyle industry and serves on several company boards, including Tata Sons. He has also recently inducted into the board of Sir Dorabji Tata Trust. He also sits in many companies' boards as an independent director. Joining him is Mr. Harish Bhatt. So let us give a great welcome to Dr. Bhaskar Bhatt first. Joining him is Mr. Harish Bhatt, who brings both a corporate and literary voice to our stage today. A Tata Group veteran of over 39 years. He has held senior leadership roles, including Chief Operating Officer of Titan Jewelry and Watches and Businesses, and Managing Director and CEO of Tata Global Beverages. Beyond the boardroom, he is a celebrated storyteller. That is what he's going to do today. Author of several books spanning business history, fiction, poetry, and humor, four of which have been national bestsellers, including Tata Stories and Tata Log. Forbes has twice listed him among the world's top 10 most influential chief marketing officers, and LinkedIn has named him a top voice in India. Please join me to warm Mysuru Lit Fest welcome to Mr. Bhatt and Harish Bhatt. We welcome you both, sir. We are quite excited to see. I will urge you to watch the movie going on Make in India story, Titan story. That is their story. Thank you, sir.
So let me begin and welcome all of you to this brief conversation between Bhaskar and me. Bhaskar has been my boss in Titan for many, many years. So normally when I'm in conversation with him, he would be doing my performance appraisal. Today I hope it will be a different kind of conversation.
You can't boss over his intellect.
But So, and he always pulls my feet. We have known each other for many years. But apart from my corporate career, I also write books. This is my most recent book on learnings from Mr. Ratan Tata. I want to start, the topic that we are talking to today is about learnings in leadership from the Tata Group. And the title of this session that both Bhaskar and I discussed and chose is a title which says, For the Love of India. Now, that is the title of Jamshedji Tata's biography, written by a very great historian called R.M. Lala. Beautiful book. If you get your hands on it, please do read it. It talks about how Jamshedji Tata worked for the love of India, setting up Tata Steel, Indian Institute of Science, and so forth. But I want to start with a story today, which is about a more contemporary leader of the Tata Group, who is Ratan Tata. All of you would know his name. And in the mid-1990s, Ratan Tata once stood up in an Automobile Association of India meeting and said, why can't India have its own car, designed for Indian families, for Indian roads, made of Indian components, and truly indigenous car. People turned around and said, India is not technologically advanced. We can't make our own car. And in fact, there was a lot of skepticism. People actually, Bhaskar, if you remember, said that Mr. Ratan Tata is putting good money after bad if he tries to create a own Indian car. But he said, doesn't matter. If people are skeptical, we will do it in Tata Motors if the industry is not coming together to do it. Because creating your own car creates engineering excellence in the country, creates jobs, creates ancillary units, which then make the parts for the car and so forth. And he had a vision for the car. He said it should be the size of an Ambassador, the fuel efficiency of a Maruti Suzuki, and a styling which is superior to the Zen. I don't know how many of you remember the Zen. It must have been here on the roads of Mysuru as well. So with that, he started the journey of making the car. He got the engineers of the Engineering Research Center of Tata Motors in Pune to design the Tata Indica in collaboration with IDEO of Turin. But they needed a factory to make a car. And a factory, even at that time, a car factory, was $1.3 billion, Bhaskar. Tata Motors didn't have the money to do it. But did that challenge set Ratan Tata back? No. His engineers and he went around the world. They found a disused Nissan plant somewhere in Australia, which was being run only for 15 minutes a day to keep it alive. They were able to negotiate it at 1/6 the price of a new car plant. They disassembled it brick by brick, tens of thousands of tons of weight. They brought it all the way to Pune, and next to the trucks plant in Pune, they created the first plant for the Tata Indica. They had to find workers and train them. They got people educated from schools in and around the hinterlands of Pune, got them there. I have spoken to some of them. I have gone to Tata Motors Pune, spoken to some of them. Even today they cry tears of joy when they say we assembled India's first car. Apparently it took them 8 days to assemble the first Indica. Today you go to a Tata Motors plant, every 40 or 50 seconds there is a new car, the Harrier, the Nexon, the Punch coming out of the Tata plant. They had to create ancillary units to create parts for the car. A typical car at that time had 3,800 moving parts in it, moving and non-moving parts in it. In a period of 2 to 3 years, Tata Motors and their sourcing team and their engineering team created ancillary units in Pune and Western India for the parts that went into India's first car. Some of those were also joint ventures, which we know as Tata Auto Components today. And some of them were ancillary units for trucks, which now started also producing parts for cars. In 1998, ladies and gentlemen, when the Tata Indica was finally launched by Mr. Ratan Tata, you won't believe it, 97% of all the parts going into the Tata Indica were proudly made in India. That's how the Tata Indica was born. There were initially some quality issues with the car. It's not that everything was very smooth. Even today, engineers in Tata Motors squirm when we talk about, the initial noise issues, the initial plastic finish issues. But again, Ratan Tata led from the front. He called for an emergency meeting at the Taj President, where they resolved that within a year they would resolve those issues. They met distributors, they met customers. Within a year and a half, those issues had been fixed. The Indica had been launched as Indica V2. And many of you may remember the advertising slogan, more car per car. It went on to become the fastest selling car on the face of India by 2001-2002, and BBC rated it the best car in its category. Of course, today, if you look at Tata Motors cars, the Harrier, the Nexon, the Punch, all of them are beautiful models. But this is where the story of the cars business of the Tata Group started. And Ratan Tata has often been asked, you know, what gave you the courage to do this? Why did you do this? And he said, you know, we need to do something to inspire young India, to show them that what is not possible can actually be done. And that's one of the core reasons why he did it. It has spawned an entire ancillary industry, created tens of thousands of jobs in Pune and in the western area of India. And today there are so many other global car manufacturers who also come into India. That's a typical example, ladies and gentlemen, of what for the love of India means. He did create a very successful car industry for the Tata Group, but more importantly, he created an indigenous car industry for the entire nation. And that's the note on which I would like to start our discussion. And I'd like to start asking Bhaskar this question. Bhaskar, this is the story of Tata Motors and India's first indigenous car. But, you know, just now, when the introduction to this session was happening, Sam mentioned the recent Titan film series, which featured J.R.D. Tata, which featured Xerxes Desai. How many of you here have seen that series on television? Wow, that's quite 60-70% of the audience. And in fact, Bhaskar's namesake also had a character there, but we will not go into that part of the discussion now. What I do want to ask Bhaskar is, he has worked perhaps the closest with Mr. Xerxes Desai when Titan was being set up. He actually wrote the project report for the creation of Titan, working with Mr. Desai in those days. I want to ask you, Bhaskar, when Mr. Desai set up Titan, how did he recruit Titan, and can you remember some of those days and how Titan actually created livelihoods for so many people? And hearing the story from Bhaskar himself, who was involved at that stage, would be very, very interesting for all of us, I'm sure.
I just want to step back with the Tata Motors story, Harish, and we are talking about leadership and management versus leadership. I've always thought about what's the difference. I believe leaders make mistakes, okay? And if I were to, but they pursue with inspiration and commitment and passion. If I were to take the Nano example, the same Mr. Ratan Tata, he was inspired not by the love for India alone, love for Indians, okay? Which was to do with those who were traveling in unsafe conditions, maybe the auto rickshaw and so on and so forth. Why I tell you this is, I think the whole nation was inspired by the idea of a low-cost 1 lakh rupee car.
That's
okay?
correct. Yeah.
But more than that, I have spoken to professionals, and I spoke to, at that time I was not in Bosch, but Lakshmi Narayan, he was heading Bosch at that time. He was telling me, as a supplier to Nano, the challenge that is set for us, and not he as in Tata Motors and Ratan Tata himself saying, everybody must participate in this. And he said Bosch went out of its way on the R&D side and manufacturing side to ensure low cost delivery of the products. Now it's another story. Nano went on with certain problems, but it's still on the roads. So my point is, what drives leaders is really that there's an inner drive which is inspired as they see India is one, Indians, and everything else that they can do. Jamsetji Tata also started with that. So coming back to your question, I think the segue to that question is really sitting in the Nano in a way, but Nano was after, Indica was also after Titan. Let me go back to, there was this desire, and again, this is about the group's leadership practices. Certainly, J.R.D. Tata was one which we discovered later, was one whose style of leadership was about building enterprises around people.
Well, why do you say that, Bhaskar?
I'll tell you. I have seen this, I've heard about this, experienced this a little. if you take Rusi Modi, Darbari Sheth, Sumant Mulgaonkar, later Ajit Kerkar, Mr. Kohli, FC Kohli. And this I heard from Mr. Desai. He had believed in that if we find our eye for good people, we can build businesses around them.
Yeah.
So therefore, despite whatever happened to Rusi Modi and Darbari Sheth, etc., much later, they are revered in their company. Rusi Modi was the Raja of Jamshedpur forever. Darbari Sheth, even today,
Command a huge amount of respect.
Therefore, and Xerxes Desai had that eye for getting the right people. Now, if I were to take the early days of Titan, I don't know how many of you know, and it's now there in that serial, that the largest shareholder in Titan is the Tamil Nadu government. 27.88% is held by the Tamil Nadu government. It has been that forever, from day one. And I believe some of the, nobody gives me credit for that, I have lived with a joint venture for 17 years, and it's a government of Tamil Nadu that one could handle the bureaucracy but I must give full credit to Tamil Nadu government also. So it's the longest standing JV, I think, certainly in the Tata Group. Now, the government gave us local area benefit because Hosur, and that is where the plant is, Titan's manufacturing plants predominantly are in Hosur. Dharmapuri district was declared as backward. So backward area benefits is what we got. So two principles of leadership which I learned during that time. One is the government has given us this benefit for one reason, because this is a backward area. Mr. Desai saw talent in the HMT engineers. The best, Mr. Amita, late Mr. Amita was no longer there, Mr. Hari Rao, Dwarkanath, Shantaram, they were the people who built the manufacturing facility at Titan. Full credit to them. But the principle of not just benefiting from the government's subsidies versus the purpose for which the subsidy was given was the principle that Mr. Desai and Amita and everybody followed. Therefore, what emerged was a manufacturing facility which had people in the front line who had no manufacturing experience. So we went, and when I say we, it is the big we, Titan. I was in sales and marketing, enjoying the benefits of the great quality that this factory produced. But they went to 1,000 schools in those backward areas, convinced those principals to get those kids after a certain age, to the villagers to say, we are building this factory. We need girls who can assemble watches. We will teach them everything, don't worry. Now, my point between today's practices is you start an industry, you hit the ground running by getting domain experts from the same industry, okay? Because you can scale up very fast, but culture you can't build. You can build culture only if your purpose is known to those employees. And I can, without being critical of that industry, you want to get into not software services, to mobile services, who do you go to? You go to Airtel, you go to Jio, and at that time, that is how businesses got built. And I'm not criticizing those businesses get built for running the business. I think if you're creating an enterprise and an institution, there are certain things. So having benefited from the government, we ought to be responsible enough to be creating employment. Today, in fact, just last week, 30th of June, 25 of those women employees plus a few males
So, Bhaskar, they
retired from Titan.
They came immediately after school.
After school, and it is sad to say, some of in their villages, of course, they didn't know English. They didn't know probably some of them didn't even have toilets at home. So everything was taught to them by Titan, but with a purpose, saying these are long-term investments we are making. And those same people eventually ended up making those exceptionally high-quality Edge or the watches we sold in Europe and so on. So these are long-term, I wouldn't even call investments. These are purpose-led practices.
So would you say, Bhaskar, Mr. Desai and his team didn't just build watches, they built an entire community in Hosur?
I think so. I don't know how many of you are aware that you were there that day, and the day he passed away, and he's by Parsi, and we had to take permission from his family that he won't go to the Tower of Silence. The last journey, we requested, and the family readily agreed that he be cremated in Hosur. This is the town he built, the community built.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. There was a 1.5 kilometer long procession that accompanied him on.
I remember.
He couldn't speak a word of Hindi. His photograph is there in every Hosur home of employees. Now, that is the impact you can have. And, for us, Xerxes Desai was the founder of Titan.
So that's a very inspiring story. Like Bhaskar said, I was there that day at the funeral of Mr. Desai, and to look at such a long procession of people, as well as, not just the workers of Titan, but I think half the city of Hosur turning out to say their final goodbye to a man who had created such a...
Transformed Hosur also, the prosperity that Hosur... Anyway.
But I want to move on from that, Bhaskar. Sure. You succeeded Mr. Xerxes Desai as the managing director of Titan, and you led it thereafter splendidly for the next 2 decades, from growth to growth. And we all know how the market capitalization of Titan not just climbed, but ballooned up under your leadership. But my question here is not so much about the market capitalization and financial success of Titan. All of us know that. Not even about the quality of watches that we so proudly wear, or about the Titan Edge, which was the slimmest watch in the universe. My question to Bhaskar is, as the leader, what were 1 or 2 of the most challenging situations you faced? Because I think leadership comes to the fore when there's a challenge or a crisis. What were the challenges you faced, and how did you, what was the thought process in your mind to address those challenges? Maybe you can take one of them and tell us, what went through your mind in addressing them.
Xerxes. But he was such a tall figure, much older, much more accomplished.
And the founder of the company.
And a visionary. And you are aware that I was one amongst equals who was asked to lead the company. One amongst equals. That itself is a personal challenge, because we are all friends. We were all peers. So I will tell you something reasonably challenging, which for this crowd maybe the language will not be acceptable. So on the first day, when I sat in that room, all my colleagues, my friends were around. So I said 2 things. First of all, I am not Xerxes Desai. So from today onwards, you'll be tempted to compare. So please don't do that. I don't know how I will stop you from comparing. I cannot be. Whether I'll be myself, I really don't know, but I cannot be Xerxes Desai. The second is, from today onwards, I'm not sales and marketing head or jewelry head or watches head. I'm supposed to be the head of this company. I don't know what job I have, but you guys know your job better than I am supposed to know, whether you're heading jewelry or manufacturing, etc. So if you disagree amongst yourself, don't come to me. If you come to me, I will feel I need neither of you. If I'm going to solve your problem, so please sort it out yourself. The only thing I'm good at is, if in the process of running this or doing your job, if the shit hits the fan, I'll be there to clean.
No, that was a very powerful statement. I was in the room. I was the marketing head of Tanishq at that time. And I remember Bhaskar making this statement, but that was a very powerful statement because it gave all of us the emotional safety to work as leaders of our teams. He used exactly these words. If the shit hits the fan, come to me, I will find a way of cleaning.
So that challenge. In the first year, I don't know how many of you know that Mr. Ratan Tata was not convinced about the jewelry business. So there was a push to close the jewelry business. And, 2002 had just taken over. And I could confront maybe Mr. Desai, but who can confront Mr. Ratan Tata? And this was shit hitting the fan, really, okay? Because we were asked to come and make a presentation.
And that was a real threat, no, Bhaskar? The business
threat. It was a
being
real
closed.
threat.
Yeah.
Jacob Kurian heading jewelry, what is his name? Biju was heading watches, and 4 of us went to Bombay House, and all the, you know how it is, no? Maharathis on the other side, we had to make this presentation. So I said, I have to now stand by my statement. When the shit hits the fan, I will be there, okay? So anyway, all the professional presentations were made, and Jacob gives me the credit even today. He said, I asked you the previous evening, despite the losses we were making in jewelry, can we go first for in the presentation?
Before watches.
Before watches. So maybe, I don't know, I said, okay, I think let's clean the shit first, Then maybe they'll hear us.
And jewelry was making significant losses.
7 years continuous losses, and the question that was asked was, are you a watch company making jewelry? It certainly was Xerxes Desai's, and that's another story by itself. Anyway, to cut a long story short.
So what happened at the meeting with Ratan Tata, Bhaskar?
I'll tell you. So the presentations were made, and all of us made small noises.
And Mr. Tata was there himself?
He was there, and we were waiting for him to say something. Anyway, the presentation was going on, and at the end of it, some minor statements like we said, the jewelry business is going to get transformed in this country. The girl who who's born in Patna, gets educated in Delhi, does her engineering in IIT Kanpur, gets married to someone in Infosys. For her, the local family jeweler doesn't mean anything, sir. It will be a national brand. So she'll get the same shop in Patna or in Delhi or in Chennai or in Bangalore. That will be the idea of a national brand, and India is going to transform. Women are going to be mobile. All this usual MBA stuff we kind of belted out to them.
And he was listening to you.
He was listening to all this. At the end of it, pin drop silence. What do we do? It's over. Presentation is over. So I had the courage to ask, sir, we are all waiting for you to say, what do we do? Because nobody knew what to say after this. And I think you know the other story also of what I asked of him once. But the nobility of that man, and that's what I use forever, nobility of that man, and I guess he thought, ये तो बकरा है, अगले साल भी इसको sack करना है तो निकाल सकता है कभी भी, After all, he's 47 years old. So he said, okay, we'll give you 1 year. You show that this can be transformed. All I'm saying is, when we came out of that, the energy with Jacob and his team and the whole company, the faith in the group was restored. And what they put into that 1 year, it was magical. It was just magical. I don't know, you should see our story from 2002 in terms of profitability, market cap, etc. So I'm saying this was, I think, a company's critical crisis. And there were others, 1 or 2 after that. And I do believe you get tested, Harish, only during difficult times.
Yes.
The rest of the time you're doing all the managerial stuff, can you, what is that, gold rat, can you adopt, can you do gold on lease buying, can you do merchandising better, can you set up the retail store better, can you do, all that is knowledge. But leadership comes from somewhere else, I feel.
And I think that was a seminal moment for Titan, because Bhaskar got Mr. Ratan Tata to say, or Mr. Ratan Tata said in response to Bhaskar's question, why don't you look at it for 1 more year and can it perform? And of course, Tanishq performed And look at what a fabulous story it has been since then. But I want to stay on Bhaskar's point. He said leadership gets tested in moments of crisis, not in stable moments. Anyone, merchandising and all that can still keep happening.
Yeah.
It's important.
Especially when you have guys like Harish, you know.
I told you he's always in this mode.
World-class processes, I'm telling you.
But thanks for pulling my feet, Bhaskar. But talking of crises, there was one question I had put down today to ask Bhaskar about another crisis that the Tata Group faced. I'm moving out of Titan now, and I'm moving to the rest of the group. I put down that question, but just an hour back, there was a gentleman in the audience who asked exactly that question of me. So rather than my asking that question, I'm going to ask Mr. Raghurao, are you there? Can you ask Bhaskar that same question that you asked us? Maybe give him a mic. Because his question is very interesting and it deals with another crisis that the Tata Group faced. The gentleman there.
There he is standing.
Thank you, Mr. Bhatt, and thank you, Mr. Bhatt. This has been an absolutely fantastic discussion so far. My question was in the context of the lessons learned through Tata Group's encounter with the terrorists during the event and the immediate aftermath of the event. So if you could expound on that a little bit.
So I think the reference, Bhaskar, is to the 26/11 terror attacks in Mumbai, the leadership lessons learned.
Let me start with a very recent conversation I had with a very renowned bureaucrat. He was the governor of RBI. I happen to know him only because he was the chairman of Titan at one time, Mr. Shaktikanta Das. And he mentioned this. And you see, what stays in people's mind perhaps are not what happens much later. What he told me was, in a private conversation in his room, he said, you know, when that 26/11 attack happened, the first person we saw at the site was, and this was being discussed amongst the senior bureaucrats and some ministers, and as recently as a month back or something, was Mr. Ratan Tata. He was there at the site. In fact, he wanted to go in within, I think, an hour and a half of the attack.
Yeah, so I want to take a minute and just narrate that. You know, this is true. Mr. Ratan Tata reached the Taj Hotel when terrorists were in the hotel shooting people within 40 minutes of the attack starting, Bhaskar. He tried to get into the hotel. The police had to tell him, listen, you can't go in, there are terrorists shooting there. And then, I don't know how many of you know, but over the next 3 days when the terror attacks were going into the hotel, Mr. Ratan Tata was right out there on the pavement outside the Taj near the Gateway of India. And I've asked this question of another person who worked closely with Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. R.K. Krishna Kumar, who was my first boss in the Tata Group. And Mr. Krishna Kumar has told me Mr. Ratan Tata was feeling helpless, but he wanted to show solidarity with the people who are within the hotel, the staff as well as the guests. And that is why he stood outside the hotel for those 3 days altogether.
Yes. Therefore, you know, this question, Raghu, has been asked in a different way. And I think it became a case in Harvard, which is, you know, the KRA of that housekeeping person or the girl in that, you know, who was with the Unilever board was meeting that day in one of the rooms. At the Taj. You know, Nihal Kaviratne as well as Irina were inside that. Yeah. And that girl was serving them through the night. And that guy who led the crowd from the Memories of China, I think, no? Mm-hmm. He would ask the guests to go out first, literally saying, I will stand between the terrorist and the guest, okay? So people have asked me, I mean, it's not part of your KRA, you know, when you're in, it's not, you know, it's not a KPI saying, did you... But I have asked a lot of people. In fact, I asked one of the colleagues of one of the guys who died. later in the chambers. He's still at the chambers.
Yeah.
I asked him what happened. He said, yeah, वो मेरा अच्छा दोस्त था लेकिन गया तो क्या उसने नहीं सर हमारे यहाँ तो guest is God. That is the हमको सिखाया जाता है. So this is ingrained in us. So naturally we kind of reacted that way, you know. That was what he said. He was also there, of course he escaped. So these are things which, you know, people ask us, you know, so
But
what
Bhaskar,
are those
but-
processes that, you know, deliver this kind of
But
behavior?
that kind of culture, Bhaskar, where does it come from? Where, you know, it is-
Frankly, I have seen this just coming through the ages by behavior of the leaders. You watch, it is not taught. You know, if you read the code of conduct of the Tata Group, it reads like any other company's code of conduct. But through actions, through non-actions and behavior, I think the people learn and get inspired. I think, you know, the story of Titan was on demonetization day, for example.
yeah.
Not a single store crossed accepting cash after 2012 midnight. Now, when we ask those girls in a Guwahati or a Gorakhpur store where, you know, no Bhaskar Bhatt or CKV is sitting in the store to say, no, thou shalt not. They just said, no, sir, you know, it is company policy. No, sir, no, we should not. No, otherwise the brand will die. I mean, all those kinds of things. Simple person, for her, a 30 lakh, a customer who she's supposed to serve, because we say customer first, people second and all that. See, that customer is waiting outside, sir, how can I accept cash? We are breaking the rule. Now, for people to follow that at 12, it was 11:59. You can't collect cash after that. That was the simple, after Modi's speech was at 8:30, and we had only 3.5 hours to just say, listen, because those girls are not watching television. They are selling jewelry, you know. But they did not a single store cross the line. So these are just, you know, people live through those.
Yeah, we have only 5 or 10 minutes, I've been told, but I want to just end the answer to that question
Yes.
by saying Ratan Tata finally entered the Taj after the 4 terrorists had been killed. The stars of that night were the staff of the Taj. 14 of them lost their lives protecting guests. But when Ratan Tata was asked by media, he said 2 things. The Taj was lying in tatters. He said, one, within a month's time, we will reopen the Taj. We can be hurt, but we cannot be knocked down. 26th of November were the terror attacks. On the 21st of December, the tower wing of the Taj reopened for business. Very proud. So this is also leadership in action. The second thing is he told the media that we will find a way from the Tata Group of supporting every family which has been impacted by these terror attacks. And when he said that, there were some senior executives standing near him, and this story has been told to me by Mr. H.N. Srinivas, who was the CHRO of Taj at that time. He said when this was said, 1 or 2 of the senior executives turned to Mr. Tata and said, sir, we don't even know how many people have been impacted or killed. Obviously, they were worried, is he making a huge financial commitment? What could this commitment be? Apparently, Mr. Tata turned to them in the same soft voice and he said, how does it matter? This city has given us so much for over a century. Now the city needs us and we should do something for it.
Absolutely.
So, but there's one more thread of this I want to say. I was in the watches business in Titan at that time in 2008. Bhaskar was the MD of the company. And one of the things that Bhaskar did, which I thought was exemplary, 2 watches of Titan were created to fund, to go back
Eternal
to that-
Mumbai. It
Eternal
was called
Mumbai.
Eternal
Mumbai. One featuring the VT station clock and one featuring the dome of the Taj. And then Bhaskar decided that the revenues from those watches should go to the Taj.
The entire revenue, which is only for, so that Mumbaikars, it is a small slice of that event they can wear on their wrist. 100%. We didn't even forget, it's not a material cost that we wanted back. I mean, we were a little shocked at the Maharashtra government. They didn't give us VAT benefit at all. But we did 2 things. We said, I think we collected 75 lakhs for that trust. But more important, we said we will not use this as marketing. It will not be advertised. Let Mumbaikars come to the store. There was just a thing like this saying, Eternal Mumbai, the dome and the VT station clock. You can make your small contribution to the 2,500 rupees for the VT station clock and 3.5 for the Taj, and you will get a certificate that you contributed to the trust.
So, Bhaskar, I want to ask you a final question. I think we are running out of time. The question I want to ask you is, we have narrated many stories in this session. The Tata Indica story, the Titan and Xerxes Desai story, the Tanishq story, what happened with the terror attacks in the Taj, and the Taj itself being built. The entire thread, Bhaskar, running across the history of the Tata Group is one of nation building and community. Where do you think that comes from, and why is that important for private enterprise to look at today?
I go back to, I wore this watch just so that I remember to talk about this story.
Yeah.
Okay?
This special watch that Bhaskar is wearing has on it the exact facsimile of a letter that Jamshedji Tata wrote to Swami Vivekanand, requesting his support for the creation of the Indian Institute of Science. And Mysore has a very special link to this. I am particularly very proud that Her Highness is here, because the Maharaja of Mysore supported the creation of this institute by giving 370 acres of land in Bangalore. So there's a very special link, but Bhaskar, please go ahead.
So, that nation building was not just left to building at Empress Mills or a Tata Steel or Tata Power and so on. It was this institute. It is the finest in the country even today, Indian Institute of Science. And it's not just boldness of vision, it is for the love of India. It is for the love of India. He had to face a lot of hurdles, including from the British Empire. Maybe that you can tell in 2 minutes that how he got approval from the Queen or whatever, from London.
No, the Viceroy of India was Lord Curzon in those days. And Lord Curzon apparently said, who will teach at this institute? Where will the Indian students be? Why do we need such an institute for India? I mean, this is ways of posing roadblocks more than anything else. So Jamshedji Tata actually went over Lord Curzon's head to the Secretary of State for India in London and spoke to him, got approvals from him, got Swami Vivekanand's support, came and met Diwan Seshadri Iyer, who was the Diwan to the Maharaja of Mysore. The Maharaja of Mysore contributed land, and that is how eventually the Indian Institute of Science was born in Bangalore, which until today is the #1 ranked science university in this country.
So, I think nation building is not just about building big businesses. I mean, TCS is one of the most thriving businesses. Yes, we are seeing some problems now, but across Tata Steel or Tata Motors, Titan, these are all, it's beyond just economic engines. They are beyond economic engines. They employ people. There is a cultural impact. Many millions of lives are impacted. The stories of the Taj Trust just go on and on about how a very poor lady refused the help. She said she had lost her husband in that attack, but Mr. Tata went to her and she said, it's fine. The very fact that you've come itself is. So it's very different, and these are, we are not here to promote the group. We are just sharing stories. These are not, I can make PowerPoint slides out of lesson number 1, lesson number 2. That's not what certainly I don't see this session as that, just for sharing.
So ladies and gentlemen, we have run out of time now. We could go on and on about great companies of the Tata Group, whether it's Tata Consultancy Services, Tata Steel, Tata Motors, all of which have rendered exemplary, I think, contributions to the community and the nation. But I want to thank all of you for giving us such a patient hearing, listening to these stories and picking up some lessons in leadership from these stories. Thank you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Harish.
It's also my great privilege before I leave. I think for both Bhaskar and me, it is our great privilege that Her Highness has been here in the audience listening to this discussion. So I would like to gift her, with her permission, a copy of this book on Ratan Tata. Bhaskar, would you join me?
must really thank Bhaskar. I must officially thank Bhaskar and Harish Bhatt for taking time to come all the way and share your Tata's leadership thoughts to us. Thank you very much. There are more to it, and I'm sure that we need a day-long time to hear more leadership stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you both, Harish Bhatt and Bhaskar Bhatt, for giving me this lovely book. Thank you, both of you, Mr. Harish Bhatt and Bhaskar Bhatt. Hello? I think you can hear, no? Can you hear? Hello? Yeah. It was an inspiring story. Thank you, Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt. Thank you, Mr. Harish Bhatt, for giving me this wonderful book. I'm sure we all have something to learn from, he used the word nobility. If all of us take a leaf out of Mr. Tata, I think the world will be different. Thank you all.
Thank you.
The books are made at a bookstall. I would request the audience to make use of this opportunity, and you can even have time to have a few minutes with Mr. Harish Bhatt and Mr. Bhaskar Bhatt. He's running away now, but you can hold him for a few minutes.
Can we get on to the next
Thank
panel,
you very much.
please?
Sorry.
Enduring themes in Indian textiles. Mayank Mansingh Kaul is a Delhi-based curator and writer who has extensively researched the histories of textiles in post-independent India. May I request our guests to please go to the author's signing counter, please? Excuse me, we are starting the next panel. The exhibitions he has curated have positioned Indian craftsmanship and design in unique and pioneering ways. Please take your seats and let's listen to Mayank Mansingh Kaul.
Can we all please settle down? We have to start the next session. Can we all please settle down, please? Ladies and gentlemen. Can we all sit down, please? Please.
For the next slide.
Can we check?
Yeah, you can.
Which side?
Yeah.
This is the second slide.
You can hear. This is the previous one.
It's going to be a problem. This?
Yeah. Can you click that?
But this is not the first. I need the first slide.
First slide. First slide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you click this? Second one.
And when I go back. I need the first slide again.
Yeah.
And then I have a video.
Video.
Yeah, can you put the slide first?
First slide. Yeah.
So when I ask for the video, after the first slide, I'll ask for the video.
I'll play.
It's 5 minutes.
Okay.
After that, we come back to it.
Okay.
Namaskar and good afternoon. Thank you for this kind introduction.
Shashiji, and many congratulations to the Mysuru Literature Festival for celebrating its 10th anniversary with this edition. Of course, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you also for the invitation to be a part of this year's programming. Mysore has been an important center for textiles in the past, and it seems relevant, therefore, that an inclusion of a session on textiles has been conceived as part of the festival's programming. It is wonderful to see so many of you in the audience who I know are passionately interested in the subject, and I hope I'm able to finish my presentation on time so there can be perhaps the chance for some conversation. My illustrated presentation here will consider a time span of almost 500 years, introducing such visual and material themes which we see expressed in handmade and hand-patterned textiles in India over half a millennia. Visual representations of such textiles, however, go back longer, and we find their depictions in art over 2,000 years in the Indian subcontinent. In creating this arc, I base my narrative on that of an exhibition which I had the chance, and I should say privilege, to curate early last year at the prestigious National Museum in Delhi, which was initiated by the Delhi-based Devi Art Foundation, a not-for-profit organization founded in 2005 by the prominent art collectors Lekha and Anupam Podar. The images that you will see here are of textiles from the permanent collections of the two institutions. But before that, a short 5 minutes video as a start would help us virtually walk through the exhibition. May we have the video, please? Proposed textiles from the collections of the two institutions. And the exhibition is what we normally approach as a survey exhibition. So it's a brief survey or overview of Indian textiles over half a millennium. These exhibitions become pedagogic because we have students, we have practitioners, some of whom have not encountered in person the kind of historical objects that you see in an exhibition like this. And because, of course, it's a very vast subject with a lot of diversity, we've chosen to present this overview over 10 groups, each of which looks at one enduring visual or material theme which recurs in Indian textiles over this 500-year period. But in doing so, it also represents themes which recur in architecture, in other forms of art in the Indian subcontinent as well. One of the things that you might see in the exhibition is that there are key transition pieces. So we continue with the floral and vegetal themes, and then we have their incorporation into architectural compositions. For 2,000 years, across and more, we've seen the representation of different kinds of birds and animals in art, architecture, all over the world. And we have a few examples of how the theme of the birds and animals gets expressed in historical and contemporary Indian textiles. So the earliest textile in the exhibition is from the 14th, 15th century. And we have contemporary pieces which were actually made as late as December 2024. So for instance, our reproductions or conventional historical designs from the Ottoman repertoire of complex brocading, but they have been made in the 21st century. We have an extraordinary example of an actual end panel of a Kodali Karupur sari, which has been reproduced in 2023. This is a historical example of a petani. And the theme of the shikarga that you actually see here, the enduring theme, the royal hunt, is something which is quite rarely found. This is also another form of the shikarga. This is a detail from a 16th century Akbar period carpet. And in this case, we also see a very interesting subversion of the theme. The designer actually replaces images of the hunted animals with motifs of endangered species of animals. So what this also shows, and many of the key pieces in the exhibition that you encounter, is no matter how complex or extraordinary or intricate a form of textile production or patterning in the country, it can still be accessed. There are skills and designer attitudes that are actually keeping them relevant and alive. The second part of the exhibition draws our attention to what we may refer to as material themes. So these are actually groups which have been dedicated to specific ways of patterning or creating cloth itself. The National Museum is a public institution. It gets a broad spectrum of visitors. So we wanted to provide a show that would be actually educational and instructive, kind of like an introduction to Indian textiles, as it were. The motifs, patterns, designs, aesthetics, and decorative elements that you will encounter in images which follow are not restricted to fabric and cloth, as I also spoke about in the film. We find them rendered in other forms of art, painting, sculpture, decorative objects made in various materials, architecture and the built environment, hand-painted murals and frescoes, carvings in wood and stone, ceramic, mosaic and tile work, furniture, as well as jewelry and precious ornaments. And what could be a better way to illustrate this idea than through the enduring motif of the mango or the ambi? Today, this motif has become widely known as the paisley. You will see it here repeated in the end panel or pallu of a fragment of a waist sash from Kashmir from the 18th century, hand-woven in pashmina, a variety of the finest goat hair, which has origins in the upper Himalayan region and has widely become known also in the West today as cashmere. Such shawls with paisley patterns from Kashmir were sought after by elite consumers across the Indian subcontinent, worn by royals, aristocrats, and members of wealthy mercantile communities. Outside of India, their biggest market is known to have been in France, where they became so coveted and in demand that they were at one point banned from entering the French market, as they were competing with locally produced textiles. Copies followed, and replicas of them started being made both in weaving centers in France, as well as other parts of Europe, including the Scottish town of Paisley, where they started being produced on machines on a large scale. So a design of possibly Indian origin in the motifs of mango or the ambi acquired a global dimension. But this ambi or paisley, comprising of several smaller groups of flowering shrubs and plants, may have itself emerged as we know of today, from motifs of such small buttas as we see here in a 17th century pashmina shawl, also from Kashmir. Such themes of small flowering shrubs and bushes are seen in pashmina textiles from Kashmir well into present times, through the 19th century, when a highly naturalistic botanical style of them were reportedly woven for the aristocratic elites of Hyderabad. with fine outlines, layered coloring, with several shades and tones of different colors used. Such sophisticated renders of florals and vegetal patterns allude in their palette to Indo-Persian influences, as well as a European Western palette. This achkan, made for a Hyderabad noble from the 19th century, uses another kind of such botanical Kashmiri pashmina fabric. Here, the motif of a leaf with great variations in green against a contrasting blue base acquires an almost large monumental form. Coverlet for furniture, or perhaps a carpet made for a private enclosure, shows us how the kind of woven patterns of flowers, shrubs, and plants that we have seen earlier in versions of the Kashmiri Pashmina textiles were also translated onto other forms of textile ornamentation. A rare 17th or 18th century fragment of a similar tent panel or kanaat is created using complex velvet here. Its base originally would have been covered in metallic thread, only frayed elements of which survive today. A close look at one of its repeated patterns in this detail shows us how master weavers and designers in the past attempted to create lifelike versions of floral patterns, mimicking the quality of hand painting that we see in miniatures as well as murals and frescoes. Exploring velvet as a material theme further, we see here a 21st century reproduction of an Ottoman velvet created in the Asha workshop in Varanasi, which was established in the early 1990s by textile designer and scholar Rahul Jain to revive qualities of 17th century complex brocades, which were once woven for the Safavid Iranian, Ottoman Turkish, and Mughal Indian courts. As the only such known workshop, which produces draw-loom complex velvets in the world today by hand, the fact that such historical examples can be masterfully recreated in India today shows that skills that we see in extraordinary historical examples of Indian textiles can still be accessed and nurtured given the right environment, patronage, and support. In the previous example and this 21st century velvet, also from the Asha workshop, we begin to see how standalone forms of flowering shrubs and bushes were equally composed in complex geometrical patterns. Such formats of design are often referred to as jal, all over surface designs, and include, along with stylized versions of the buta that we've seen earlier, those of meandering creepers, which are called bale. Versions of such buta, bale, and jal were also transformed into dynamic surfaces for garments, as we see here in metallic embroidery or zardozi on a base of a plain velvet silhouette from the 19th or early 20th century. Buta, bale, and jal also come together to create another enduring compositional feature in Indian art called charbagh, referring to designs for classic formal garments where we find carefully orchestrated geometrical divisions. This is a 19th century charbagh cotton coverlet or rumal, hand block printed with natural dyes. Each part of the charbagh, as you can see, is differently rendered, showing the remarkable attempt by the designers and block printers to break the monotony of a geometric design. In such examples of Indian art, we continuously see how the eye is never made to stop. The eye lingers when looking at a piece like this on the textile with almost no starting point or end. Here is another version of a charbagh, this time brocaded in Varanasi, with a central circular medallion and corner elements which are called konya. We return to the paisley with this 19th century fine cotton muslin jamdani from Bengal, the border of which also has an unusual motif of a bird. I'm sorry, some of the slides are getting cut at the bottom, but you can see the line of paisleys. This brings us to another enduring theme in Indian textiles and indeed in Indian art and architecture of animals and birds. One of the ways in which such fauna has been expressed is in the theme of the shikarga, or the royal hunt, of which we see an elaborate historical example as a woven fragment, possibly the end panel or palla of a shawl or sari created either in the handloom center of Chanderi, which is in Madhya Pradesh today, or Paitan in Maharashtra. Featured, as you can see here, are parrots, peacocks, deer, and tigers, among other floral and vegetal decorative elements. The theme of the Shikarga continues with this Jamdani and Chins panel, created in 2024 by the Chennai-based Aksh Studio. In another version of the Shikarga, we see details from a contemporary textile panel woven at the Asha workshop mentioned before. We have seen its contemporary velvets. And here the designer transforms the idea of the Shikarga from that depicting hunted animals to one which celebrates species of endangered birds. This shows us that the enduring themes that we speak about are also constantly challenged for their conventional associations and consistently subverted through creativity. Continuing with the theme of birds, we see intricately hand-painted versions of them here in this contemporary cotton and natural dye textile artwork by Kolkata-based Kalamkari artist Ajit Das. The coexistence of birds, animals with humans becomes another theme, which Indian art has continuously returned to, showing us the codependency between us. In Indian textiles, these are perhaps expressed at their most evocative versions in Pichwai, cloth paintings where themes from the life of the Hindu god Krishna takes center stage. Usually, in such Pichwai, Krishna himself is depicted, but in this an iconic representation, his presence is evoked through the central image of this kadam tree, surrounded by gopis, and I'm sorry you can't see, but there are cows below, which indicate to his identity as a cow herder. A subtle jasmine creeper, as you can see along, sort of circling the central tree, crawls around the trunk of the tree, symbolically showing his presence. The Pichwai also shows us the way in which textiles have played an important role in sacred spaces and in faith-based rituals, practices, and ceremonies. Pichwai are typically associated with schools of cloth painting in Rajasthan. This Pichwai, however, represents a school which is believed to have been active in the Deccan. This Deccani Pichwai then also takes us to the depiction of trees in Indian textiles, markers of prosperity, laden with ripe fruit, blossoming flowers, and chirping birds, if you can see some, which are indicated in red along with the tree leaves, which over centuries has become immortalized as a theme of the tree of life. Pichwai are revered by Krishna devotees of the Vaishnava Vallabha Sampradaya sect, and Gujarat emerged as a center of embroidered Pichwai, as we see here in this rare embroidered Pichwai from the 18th or 19th century. Over a base of fine silk satin is embroidered this extraordinary, almost lifelike, image of Krishna in the chain stitch called mochi, which is associated historically with Bhuj, Kutch, the region of Gujarat. The theme of complex scenes in Indian textiles for sacred purposes is equally reflected in such hand-painted on-cloth landscapes, which have meaning for the Jain community. These are called pattas, and in this detail of a large example measuring almost 7 to 8 feet in height, we see literally a map depicting the pilgrimage site of the Shatrunjay Hill in Palitana in Gujarat, which is revered, as all of you may know, by the Jains. It is hand-painted using natural pigments, dated to the 19th century, and further represents what is often referred to as an Indic palette of vivid colors, primary blues, yellows, and reds, as distinct from the pastel Indo-Persian and European palettes that we have encountered before. This contemporary textile, a large screen and block printed cotton panel, shows us another enduring theme in Indian art, that of 9 planets or the Navagraha. In historical textiles, the theme is evoked in Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, among others. And here we see a powerful abstract contemporary representation. Also fairly large, measuring about 7 feet by 7 feet. And speaking of the 9 planets, how can one not turn to the sun itself as an all-pervasive, ever-present source of life? The Surya is depicted here through its rays, with the central medallion bringing in elements from a watch's dial as a contemporary depiction of time. This exquisite textile panel was designed in the early 2000s by textile designer Charu Vadva, and its surface is appliqued with metal, gold, silver, and copper strips called badla, using the Lucknow-based Kamdani form of embellishment, which is also popularly called mukesh. Large geometrical patterns, such as the bold circles that we have encountered in the last 2 textiles, become another enduring graphic theme, which we see in other genres of Indian textiles. This vivid Bandhani Odhani from Kutch in Gujarat takes us to a tradition of tie and dye which has today largely become associated with Western India, Gujarat and Rajasthan, but which may well have been practiced in other parts of India as well. In fact, the earliest representations of these kinds of dot-like Bandhani motifs we see about 2,000 years back, early centuries of AD in the frescoes and murals at Ajanta. And of course, we know that Bandhani was also practiced in Madurai, called the Chungadi. The small dot of the traditional tie and dye Bandhani acquired a monumental scale in this contemporary interpretation by Kutch-based master artisan Aziz Khatri, where the possibility of the smallest to the largest dot possible in such tie and dye is explored. The singular exploration of indigo here further builds up another theme that we've seen earlier, the enduring charm of blue and its various symbolic associations in Indian art. Of course, in the Deccan, we have the almost black, dark blue Chandrakali. We have the Paithani that also use dark shades of indigo. And in East and North India, we have the Neelambari Jamdani from Bengal as well as Varanasi. From Bandhani, we now move to Ikat, another form of tie and dye, where the yarns are patterned using the tie and dye technique before the textile is woven itself. In many parts of India, this is called bandha, with the patola textiles made in Patan in Gujarat being among its most famed version. The unusual Patan patola that we see here is a rumal or coverlet from the 19th century. Usually the Patan patola tradition has been involved in the weaving of saris, as we saw Shubha wearing this morning. Taking the idea of the tie and dye of yarns in the Patan patola as a central idea is a series of contemporary artworks commissioned to London-based artist Akhila Krishnan, which was created between 2013 and 2014 by master patola weaver Govind Bhai in Patan. Here you can see how, using the tie and dye process, patterns are first created on yarns themselves before being put on a hand loom for weaving. And another form of resist dyeing practiced for centuries in India involves the patterning on textiles using a hand reed called kalam, in which patterns are hand painted by the artist not using dyes, but a form of resist such as wax. The fabric is then dyed, and with the wax melting, much like in batik, subsequently the pattern is revealed. A sophisticated tradition of textiles which uses this process is the Kodali Karupur, which combines such hand painting with resist, dyeing, and jamdani to create saris, as we see here in the 19th century, as well as other kinds of drapes for men for the Tanjore royal court. The art was lost to India for well over a century, until its revival in 2023 by the Chennai-based Aksh Studio of the panel that we see here, which recreates a 19th century Kodali Karupur saris end panel or palla. This again shows us that not only do the visual themes endure in Indian textiles, but also complex materials, processes, and skills. And since the art of the kalam has come up, how can one not bring up the famed kalamkaris of the Deccan and South India? Conventionally, such kalamkari narrated scenes from mythology, and in this work created just over a decade back as a collaboration between French designer Berenice Elena and fourth generation kalamkari artist Sri Naranjan in Sri Kalahasti in Andhra Pradesh, the designer transforms the idea of kalamkari, which often depicts figural narrative scenes from myths, into a personal narrative as she narrates her travels through India over 30 years, encountering elements of Indian classical art, which she finds resonance with those from classical Greek art. And with that, I come to the concluding 4 slides and the textiles that we are going to be discussing. A rare chins, or if you'd like to call it kalamkari, made in the resist dye technique that I was talking about. So actually here what happens is, for those of you who are not familiar, the painting, like I said earlier, is not done with the dye, it's done with the resist. And then the fabric is dyed. So to achieve these number of shades requires that many applications and stages of hand patterning and dye, and then eventually returning to the base of white, which is also a very challenging process. So these kalamkaris and chintzes were called sarasa in Japan and Southeast Asia. They were exported to the Netherlands. They were exported to Britain and France, of course. Versions of them were exported to Thailand, Indonesia, very specific markets within Southeast Asia. And this particular textile represents a particular school of such kalamkaris or chins, which actually were produced for the Sri Lankan market. Just to enjoy a detail. So you, for instance, if you see these little white lines which detail the flower, they're actually done with a kind of discharge. Or they're done with the resist itself. So this intricacy is quite, and nobody could master this in the world, and that's why Indians were called the master dyers of cloth. And with that, I come to a few textiles with which we conclude. One is a depiction of a garment, which actually which has patterned the name of Ram, the god Ram. So these kinds of textiles are called namavali, where you have the repeated chants of often Ram on priest shawls, or of course in this case perhaps made for a royal court or aristocratic family, or perhaps for a wealthy mercantile elite, family, where you have these kinds of sacred chants which are embodied, in the textile. A very, very rare depiction I'm going to show you. And I'm sorry, is there a way to move the image further up? Because we're missing. Yeah, I'm sorry that you can't see the end panel here because it's a very rare depiction. It's a namavali. It's a long ceremonial cloth made in Kashmir in Pashmina. And of course, we see Shaivite kind of references here. We can go back to it. We can just go back to it. Can we just go back to that last textile, please? We actually see in the end panel a very rare depiction of Shiv with Parvati. So these kinds of textiles, as you can see, his Trishul refuses to reveal himself, but these kinds of actual pictorial representations of Shiva are super rare. And here, because, typically Shiva is in the mountains, he doesn't wear cloth, he wears tiger skin. Vaishnavism is considered, more closely and associated with cloth, not so much Shaivism. And these particular kind of Shaivite, Pashmina ceremonial textiles were created specifically for the Kashmiri Pandit community, who are Shaivites in Kashmir. With that, we move to other sacred textiles, these fragments with which I end the presentation out of samits and lampas. And these are very complex brocades which at one point were produced. There should be one more image. Which were produced There's a lot of kind of scholarly debate around them. One school of scholars believes that they were produced in Gujarat. There's another school that suggests they were actually produced in northeast India, in what is the region that is North Bengal, Assam today. And we return, this is from the 14th century, 14th to 15th century, so the earliest textile that we have in the exhibition, but also among the great repertoire of textiles that have survived that we can actually physically study. So these samits and lampas, fragments like these, were found in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries. In the 80s, they started coming into the international auction world. And we can see, again, with these textiles, how themes of birds and animals along with floral vegetal themes have kind of really coexisted. There is a final image. I'm really sorry for this back and forth, but, and I thought it'd be really nice to end with another really, really important enduring theme in Indian textiles and art, which is that of the lotus. It is something that we find expressed in all kinds of art and architecture across the subcontinent, and we see a stylized version of what we call a frontal lotus, so from the top, not from the side. Again, these kinds of fragments of samits and lampas emerged, were used perhaps in Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, but scholars have equally attributed them to Islamic courts, to their provenance and use in other Hindu courts, such as the Rajput realm, and so on and so forth. So just to give you a very brief overview over 500 years, from the 14th, 15th century to textiles that have been produced literally the last year for the exhibition itself, how sacred chants, the figurative, birds and animals, floral and vegetal themes, architectural themes like we saw in the Charbagh, and material themes such as tie and dye, indigo, and so on and so forth, continue to be received and continue to be reimagined by contemporary practitioners, showing us this very vast inheritance that has meaning and relevance even today. Thank you for listening. Again, sorry for some of these small glitches.
I think that was the most fascinating panel. It was crisp, and you, with your tapestry of textiles, kind of took us back so many centuries, but the influence of how it went into art, painting, architecture, and continues to do so today. It was fascinating. Thank you so much, Mayank.
Thank you so much for having me.
If there's any quick question, we could, because I have a minute. Otherwise, please do go ahead, buy the books which are available, and I'm sure Mayank would be happy to autograph them for you too.
No.
The way you presented is very fun, and your language and your pronunciation, it was extraordinary.
Well, thank you. I thought I was fumbling, but it's very kind of you.
In fact, I think always people attribute textiles to women's tastes. I saw a lot of men who were extremely interested. So you kept us awake, though it's through lunch.
Well, actually, most of the textiles that you saw here today were either possibly patronized, commissioned, or used by men. And those have survived because the women's textiles were possibly more in private spaces. So they're not even very, very well photographed or depicted, but well, so here we go.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us.
Pichwai, yeah. So the Pichwai, the word itself is, of Hindi, Hindi, broadly the Hindi origin. It literally refers to textiles that were placed behind, piche, of the idols. Like I said, that they were involved in the worship of the Vaishnavite Vallabh Sampradaya sect, so devotees of Vaishnavism from the Vallabh Sampradaya sect actually often used pichwais. So there would be a pichwai which would often change with every cycle of the moon or every season, and in front of them you had the idol. So they were literally pichwai. But in time, of course, they became mobile shrines in their own right. And the best examples of them, not just the best, the largest examples of them have survived, like I briefly mentioned, from Gujarat and Rajasthan, where also schools of the Nathdwara and the Jaipur school and things like that of Pichwai. There were several schools of Pichwai in Rajasthan. And they continue to be practiced today, but I chose to show one because many people maybe familiar with the Western Indian Pichwais. I decided to show one which is attributed to the Deccan because you had worshippers of this sect also settled in Deccan and South India. Sorry? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Hello. Is there any limitation for the subject you select for the Pichwai art?
Limitation? Where we know that the largest number of historical examples, like I said, had the image of Krishna itself, which we call the iconic representation. There are few aniconic representations where you have this kind of presence of him through his non-presence. What has happened in the post-independence period is also that some aspects of this tradition have moved into a more decorative, non-religious space. So you have versions where the lotuses or the cows have actually started being depicted without the central image. So the traditions of Pichwai and its various schools have also undergone, several have gone through evolution as well. So you will find today Pichwai, which are used in contemporary interiors by interior designers, and they don't actually show the central icon of the god, but you will have a beautiful play of the flowers and the birds and animals and the flowers that we see in traditional Pichwais, if that answers your question.
Mostly we see the cow pictures and lotus.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that somehow the vertical images were getting cropped out. I'm so sorry about that. But if you Google Pichwai, you'll find far more, evocative images that I showed. So, and I'm glad you're interested. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful panel. If you guys have any questions to ask Mayank, he will be there at the author's signing section. So if you have any other questions, you're free to ask him there. So we'll move on to the next panel.
Our next panel is What Power Leaves Behind Reading Karnataka and Rajasthan Against the Grain. Journalist, political analyst, and bilingual writer Preeti Nagaraj engages this distinguished panel in a conversation on history, politics, identity, and society. Joining her are Akhil Chowdhury, lawyer and human rights activist, Shrikar Raghavan, engineer turned humanities scholar and author of Rama Bhima Soma, winner of the 2025 Atta Galata Prize for Best Nonfiction, Deepa Mukherjee, and Thabin Anjum, whose writings reflect India's evolving intellectual and social landscape. Exploring themes of cultural identity, democracy, and social change through the lens of Rajasthan's journey from royal rule to modern aspirations for equality, dignity, and economic independence.
Everyone, I welcome my panelists, Tabina, Deep, Akhil, and Shrikar. Yes, please. Good afternoon to all of you. We are starting a little behind the time, so I think we will try and use a little bit more time to discuss these books. Yeah. Right. Okay. So we're sitting according to our nameplate, so you know who's who. There's Tabina, and there's me, and then there's three men. So this is a very interesting panel for me for various reasons. One is that we're discussing two books. These two books are also on sale outside. There is Politics, Caste and Power Struggles of Rajasthan, written by Tabina and Deep, with Akhil's family appearing in the book. And there's Rama Bhima Soma, very refreshing take on Karnataka